Good day, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, live from Israel with Rabbi Chaim Coffman, who's been going at this chapter 2, Mishnah 8, real hard. And today we got part 20, and I'm prodding him saying, are we going to finish this Mishnah today? And he says, we'll see. So, he's the rabbi, and we're just students listening along, and we're so grateful that he takes the time out of his very busy schedule to share with us such depth. And let's just tune in and see how he's doing. Shalom, Rabbi. So good to be with you, sir. I know you've got your son's wedding coming up, or your daughter's wedding coming up this week, and we wish you and your family well, mazel tov with the whole thing. We hope it happens without incident, and yeah.
Amen. Should be a blessing that is established. We had my future son-in-law called to the Torah today, and had a little bit of a kiddush afterwards, and whatever, we're feeling it, feeling all the good vibes. So that's gonna be Thursday, coming this this Thursday. So whatever, we're getting there. It always feels like a little bit before Passover, because before Passover you make one list, you make two lists, you make three lists, five lists. You got to get everything done, right? It feels like the list never ends, right? But it's a good things. Definitely for good things. So we are still chapter 2, right? Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, Mishnah 8. This is part 20. And as Dan the man here said, are we going to finish? Don't know. Right? Got quite a bit to go through here, but you never know, because we're going to probably have extra time here. So looks like, possibility. You just never know. So I want to mention one other thing. We spoke last few weeks about the more counsel and the more understanding, right? We spoke about the idea that person has rabbinic authority, right, in their lives. And that is that's a pretty crucial thing. And you don't go wrong having a, proper rabbi in your corner that you can ask questions to, etc. So as I mentioned to Dan earlier, I went to, give my Rebbe an invitation, to the wedding. Kind of, he's, more than 90, he's 95 years old, should be well. Mine's, definitely razor sharp. So even if he doesn't come to the wedding, which not really expecting, but, even if he doesn't come, the smile, was worth millions. So even if, as we mentioned, that, you ask a question, you ask your local Orthodox rabbi, whoever, you go to, you ask them a question, and they give you an answer, and let's say, not an easy answer to take. You never go wrong, regardless of what people say. Right? And that we have to remember. Because at the end of the day, why do we do what we do? We do what we do because, as I mentioned, earlier at the Kiddush, God said it, we do it. Right? As I mentioned, right, we asked the question, others asked the question, that in this week's Parsha, we finished up, Parsha Pirkei, we finished up the book of Exodus, and it's all about recapitulation of the tabernacle, and the loops, and the bars, and this, and that, right, all this recapitulation. And many, many times, what does the Torah say? The Torah says, Kasher Siva es Moshe. When that God said to Moshe, everything a command, everything a divine command. So Rebbe gave two answers. Why is it mentioned so many times? Tell me once, tell me twice. This is what God commanded. Tell me 10, 15, 20 times. The Torah doesn't mince any words. So why does the Torah say it so many times? So one reason he gave is the fact that who was one of the main architects of building the tabernacle, the Mishkan, was Bezalel. Now you have to remember, Jews were in the desert. How would they know how to make anything? They didn't have any tools. How would they know how to do anything? You would have thought, he was this great artisan, who knew how to do all this stuff. So my Rebbe says that, he took certain letters, put them together, Al Pi Kabbalah, and the Mishkan got built. Why? How do you know how to do that? Kasher tziva es Moshe. That's what God commanded him. God gave him different level of understanding. Different level of understanding. He wasn't a carpenter by trade. So he wouldn't have known if God didn't tell him. That's one thing. That was one explanation. Second explanation is that when it says God said to Moshe means that when God gave over, we do it. We keep what he says. By any command. Whether we understand it better, we don't. We keep it anyway. So I mentioned by Korach. What happened to Korach? Korach says, I want to be the high priest. It's not fair. Moshe gave it to Aaron. Protexius, we would say in Israel. Got connections. So why do you give it to Aaron? Kasher tziva es Moshe. Because God commanded. How many times the Torah? Many, many times. Does the Torah tell me by the Ber Hashem Moshe Lemor? God spoke to Moshe saying, he didn't make it up on his own. He didn't say it with his own understanding. He gave it over because God said, this is what I want you to give over. So, how could Korach make such a mistake? And how could Korach say, I want to be the high priest? Right? Because we're like, by the time we're 97, we're going to get to that Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says that jealousy, honor, desire to take a person out of this world. So according to many commentators, it means literally, it's going to destroy a person. Jealousy could destroy a person. Says Moshe Feinstein, one of the Torah giants of the last generation. In America, according to everybody, it brings down his commentary in Chumash and Drash Moshe Parshas Korach. So if Moshe says, I don't understand. Korach comes out of Egypt. He's one of the 20%. He held the ark and he didn't die. Right, on a very high level. Not only that, Rashi says, who do you see come out of him in the future? Samuel the prophet. So he says, I'm no slouch. I should be the high priest. Comes on Moshe Feinstein. Moshe Feinstein says he missed the boat. How did he miss the boat? He missed the boat for one very simple reason. He didn't internalize the message. I want to be the king. I want to be the high priest. I want this. Well, I didn't say I want to be the king. They would have killed him. Because who was the king? Who was the first king? Moshe Rabbeinu. He's not going to come out against the king. Who's he come out against? His brother. Comes out against Aaron the Cohen. I want to be the high priest. Comes along with Moshe Feinstein. Moshe Feinstein says he missed the boat. He missed the boat and internalized the message. Now it's a little bit hard to understand. He saw all the miracles in Egypt. He was one of the 20% came out of Egypt. He saw the miracles in the desert. He saw the manna, right? Came every day, double portion on Friday.
Amazing. For 40 years.
Came all this time. So what happened? What happened? So Moshe Feinstein says he didn't get the message. And the message is, Kasher tziva es Moshe. This is what God commanded to Moshe. By the Ber Hashem Moshe Lemor. God spoke to Moshe saying, they made a mistake, a crucial mistake. So now, what is now? By way of introduction, see, they only took 7 minutes. By way of introduction, what are we saying over here? The more counsel, the more understanding. But you have to listen.
Get the message.
You have to understand. And even if the rabbi tells you something that's very, very hard to do, it may feel like it's impossible to do. I'm going to get a lot of flack. I'm going to get a tremendous amount of flack. Person may be accused, you're breaking up the family. You've changed. You've done this. You've done that. They may call you names, your rabbi names, all kinds of things. And guess what? My rabbi would say, tell them to go eat kugel. You tell them to go eat kugel. You said, this is what I'm doing. That's it. You may not be very popular. May not be. But the question is, am I doing what God said or not? So you don't go wrong. Even if people yell at you, they scream at you, they say this, they say that. So as we mentioned before, many times, a person like that deserves to be locked up in Sing Sing. They're nuts. So why am I going to take someone who's mentally challenged? And all these people are mentally challenged. Why am I going to take what someone says is mentally challenged and take seriously? You're going to say it's painful. They make fun. They say things. They this and that. So why don't you say sticks and stones? Why don't we say sticks and stones? Simple explanation is because it hits us right in the gut. Because this is what we live for. This is what's crucial to us. And then people are going to sit there and make fun of it and stamp on it and crush it. So, in the end, who cares what they say? You're going to say that's very easy to say. You're right. It's very easy to say, but it has to be implemented. Because the reality is, they are mentally challenged. And I'm not going to take anything that a mentally challenged person says seriously. And I'm not going to let it get under my skin.
Wow.
And we shouldn't let it get under our skin. Oh, but a person will say, person said it before, they said it again, they said this, so what? Or I hear what they said. Who says you have to speak to them? Oh, family's family, mentioned earlier. Yeah, family's family, and family's like an albatross. It can be an albatross. At the end of the day, they don't hold your values. They sit there and make fun and say this, that. So, maybe I'm not going to speak to them too much. Maybe I won't have any connection to them. Oh, the family's family. Blood is thicker than water. Yeah, so what? And if they intermarry? If a Jew marries a non-Jew, they still family? They get knocked out. Unless they repent somehow. They get knocked out. That's the severity. Because everybody knows, yes, 20, 30 years ago, any Jew associated with the synagogue, are you allowed to marry a non-Jew or not? Yes or no? They'll say no. But they'll say no. Today, people, even if they are affiliated with the synagogue, they can say, it doesn't matter. I don't care what the Bible says. Doesn't matter. Right? We've spoken about this. So now, the last idea over here, before actually we get the next part of the Mishnah, you'll be happy. Finally hit the next part of the Mishnah. And that is, you got to examine things and be very careful to make proper decisions. We don't have knee-jerk reactions and make decisions under onus, under pressure. Right? You got to think about what we're doing. You got to think, in many ways, what we do, how we do things.
Right.
Because if not, we're going to think, very quickly at the top of our heads. And by doing so, we'll make a wrong decision. Because we're not thinking rationally. We're not thinking properly. So if, a person has to think, they have to be careful. They have to examine things over here. And if they don't, they'll make mistakes. They'll definitely make mistakes. Now, if they don't follow the advice, what could happen? Could lead down a very slippery slope. Could have catastrophic ramifications. Right now let's understand. Person came, to an Orthodox rabbi, whoever they are, and they asked him a certain question. Now, the ramifications of that answer are very, very difficult to follow through.
Oh, sure.
They may be very, very difficult to follow through. Because the only thing you can do is damage control. So I can tell you from personal experience, many things I've had to do, you're not going to come out smelling like a rose at all. The only question is how much you get yelled at or how much you get told off for what you said or what you did. So what's the question over here? The question is damage control. You're not going to win. You're certainly not going to win. You could have the greatest arguments. You could have the greatest proofs. In the end, you could say, listen, it's not personal. This, that, and the other thing. You don't win. You're not going to win. Just the opposite. They'll make fun. They'll say things. So you say, why am I doing this? I'm getting all this flack. And if people don't like confrontation, they wilt. Coffman's language. They wilt under pressure. Right? Now, it's not easy to stand up to family, parents. Right? I know someone still lived at home. Whatever, they were younger. Parents put a lot of pressure on them. Even desecrate Shabbos. And he does the greatest Shabbos because they couldn't stand up to them. Say, but I did it on purpose. I understand what Shabbos is. But that's onus. That's clear-cut onus. You didn't, if they wouldn't put pressure on you, would you have done it? No. That's one of the great rabbis, the head of Eish Torah today. Rabbi Yitzhak Berkowitz should be well. And I asked him this question. I said, if someone does something on purpose, it's under onus. They're being forced. Parents are putting a lot of pressure on them. Is that called doing that, desecration of Shabbos on purpose? And he looked at me and he goes, you know how hard it is to make someone into a mason, to make someone into doing something on purpose? He says, you know how hard it is to obligate somebody like that? But the person felt a lot of pressure, a tremendous amount of pressure. And some people will say, yeah, you desecrate Shabbos. You did it on purpose. You knew about Shabbos. So what happens? You don't get out of the third level of hell. No repentance helps. Now, it could be according to Kabbalah, that might be true. You need a very strong level of repentance. Who's living according to Kabbalah? Who would tell an 18-year-old person, an 18-year-old Jew, right, who's coming back to Judaism, no matter what you do, it's not going to help you? So what's going to happen? Just like this person said to me, why should I bother keeping Shabbos to do anything else? I can never get out of the third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is. Whatever level of hell it is, according to Kabbalah. Even if that's true, and you tell someone the severity of it, you don't paralyze them. How can you paralyze them and say there's no such thing? You can never repent. I asked one of my rabbis once, very much steeped in Kabbalah. He said, yeah, maybe true. In doing repentance and doing tshuva for such a thing, it's very, very hard. But who's living according to those standards? Even if you know it's true. And I tell everybody out there, every Jew out there, you desecrate Shabbos on purpose. You understand what Shabbos is. Let's say they do, to whatever level. And they say, I'm going to fry in hell forever. I'm never going to get out of hell. Third level, fifth level, eighth level. Who cares what it is? How many of those people are going to want to keep Shabbos? I would bet all the money Dan doesn't have and I don't have. Put it on the table and say nobody. Nobody's going to do that. Because they're going to be paralyzed. They're going to be paralyzed to keep any Torah mitzvahs. Now, if a person does understand it's wrong and it's forbidden and all that, and they still give in, okay, they're going to be liable. And they're going to be serious repercussions. It doesn't mean they can't repent. Now, there's always repentance.
Rabbi, let me ask, about for those that are Christians, say, still in the church that are leaning or listening to a lot of the rabbis and starting to come to the understanding that their religion is just false and idolatrous. It sounds like what you're sharing would apply to them, but their group just hammers them to death with the "you're going to hell" scenario if you
right.
And so it's that fear factor that keeps them there. So please, if you can.
You're right, but what's the most important factor besides that keeps Christians still in their own quote-unquote religion? Idiocy. Why do I say idiocy? Because most Christians don't know anything about their own religion. They're kept ignorant for a reason. Because once everyone who's listening now, or anyone who's ever come out of Christianity, and they started looking into things, and they didn't get answers, and they were told you got to pray more. Like I hear people
believe
tell
harder.
Me about,
you got to make believe harder.
God's going to speak to me, right? God's going to come and speak to me. Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. But when it comes to Christians, they're kept ignorant for a reason. All right? So now, if they start to question, they're going to come out of it because they're going to see there are no answers. It's going to just take them a certain amount of time. They will come out of it, but what's the final? You're right. What's the final factor over here? They're still afraid if they don't believe in JC, they're going to fry in hell forever. And that's a serious thing. A fear factor is a very, very serious thing.
But yeah, they got to break through.
Once a person really understands that there ain't no JC, he ain't coming back, and who he was, and what he represented, then you got nothing to worry about. But still, there's a I call it like a tingly feeling or something where they're going to say, how do I know 100%? And if I give him up, look what the repercussions are. But there's another issue, right? There's another issue because now once someone comes out or they're thinking about coming out and they're going to, let's say they want to convert, and they're going to look into Judaism, they're going to see there are a million things they have to do. To control their thoughts, control their actions, all these different things. It's a lot easier being a Christian. Heck of a lot easier. I don't have to do anything, right? I don't have to believe in anything, right? If you watched my Tanakh Talk video last week, right, about Yom Kippur and being approved for JC and all that, that's very easy. It atones for all your sins, meaning I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is believe in him. But we called into question, without going through that whole video, we called into question other verses, which there's not just one sacrifice. There are many other sacrifices. You say, well, that's the main thing. It wipes out all the other sacrifices. That's what they would probably answer. The other sacrifices don't matter. This is the most important thing. And if it comes later by all the sacrifices, very good, even better. So therefore, it nullifies everything. Or they don't even have to come on to that. They'll say JC came, God abrogated the covenant, so you only believe in him, and that's it. So now, I do understand. I do understand the fear, right? That if you don't believe in him, you're going to fry now forever, right? But doesn't every person in the world has to see what they're obligated to in this world? No, I'm going to say, come on, Noahide laws made up by the rabbis. Not true, right? Because they learned it out from verses in the Torah. But even so, these are laws that are universal. Idolatry is something that is forbidden. It's universal. Now, any thinking person, no offense, anyone who got brainwashed in Christianity, any thinking person, if you would go through the doctrine and think, you'd analyze it like you'd analyze, an audit from the IRS. Or you would analyze, let's say you're gonna buy a property, or you're gonna buy a car from one of these used car salesmen, right? You buy a
thoroughly.
car, you're gonna look into the car. You're gonna take it for a test spin. You're gonna give it to a garage, open it up, let them check it out, let them see if there's anything hidden in there that's problematic. Why are you gonna do that? Because you're making a huge investment. You're making a big investment. Here, just I'll mention secondhand car sale. The prices are almost what it would cost a regular car, in the States, a brand new car almost. Why? Because of high taxes. Huge amount of taxes. So, people complain about gas. We were saying earlier, that, people complain about gas. And yeah, it's a big joke, because gas here in Israel, and that's where most of the oil is in the Middle East, we're paying double what everyone else is paying. At least. In the States now, okay, gas prices rose. They rose here as well, right, because of what's going on in the Ukraine, right, and all that. So, people complain, it's $4 American a gallon or more. I'm like, that's a joke. That's a joke, because here it's over 7 shekels a liter. A liter. Multiply a liter. How many liters in a gallon? 4, right? About 4 liters in a gallon.
Almost full 4, yeah.
That's 28 shekels. That's like 30 shekels a liter. Right? Sorry. It's it's like 30 shekels a liter. Now, how much is the shekel right now to the dollar? It's like 3.23, 3.24. Do the math. It's like $8-9 a gallon. That's insane. If that's where the oil comes from the Middle East, right? But of course, you can't give it directly to Israel. It's got to go like all the way around China and get back here, right? So we get killed over here. So buying a secondhand car taxes are through the roof, right? So you could buy a car, let's say, let's say 2010, right? Even 2010, 2000. It doesn't have huge mileage on it. And you could pay $20,000 American dollars for it. You can buy a new car for that, for goodness sakes. It's 10 years old. Someone told me a number of years ago they bought a secondhand Subaru. Right? Also, where were they? They were, I think, in Toronto or Ottawa. I forget exactly where they were. Whatever it was, cost them a few $1,000s. I laughed. A few $1,000s. Secondhand car sales there, like, through the roof. Any case, I digress. The point over here is that a person, a Christian, let's say better, a Christian because we use them as an example, they are kept totally ignorant. That's what they're kept. They're not told to question. And if you have questions, got to have faith. You got to believe. Pray a little bit more. Afflict yourself, maybe. Run outside when it's like, minus 30 Celsius in tank tops and a shirt, in shorts. Roll around in the snow, right? Which the Ramchal, I'm sure you read by Path of the Just at the beginning. He says anyone who does such a thing, they think they're so altruistic. They think they're so righteous. He says, I beg to differ. Coffman's language, you're an idiot. That's not the way you get close to God, right? But shouldn't Christians know? Shouldn't they understand that the whole thing is a bunch of malarkey, as we would say in Boston, right? If it doesn't make any sense, it's all gobbledygook. Doesn't make sense. So why do they believe it? Because they get convinced. But it's not only they can get convinced. If they would say, well, what are my alternatives? What, I'm going to become a Jew? I'm going to keep all these laws? I got it easy. I can do whatever I want. Just confess. Right? I can just confess. Very easy. Right? But they're not going to go that far. They're going to say, what? You really think, as a student of mine said, his father said, what, do you think I've been lied to in the church for the last 50 years? Yes. It's like those famous Joey Suzu commercials, right? This Isuzu can outrun a speeding bullet. He's lying. Of course they're lying. Makes perfect sense why they're lying. Makes 100% sense. Because they know they have no answers. And the higher-ups know they have no answers. So why they believe it? Good question. Right? Someone who, made a video, had this whole debate. This Christian scholar asked a whole bunch of questions he couldn't answer. Couldn't answer. And he said, you might be right. A lot of questions I can't answer. Probably contradictory, all these things. I'm not giving up, JC. I'm not going to give him up. How can I give him up? My Rebbe tells a story just on that topic. When he was younger, much younger. And there was a doctor, gave a talk about smoking. Bad habits of smoking and what it does. What it does to the body. How it's going to cut down your life and all this. Many, many years ago. So he spoke for like an hour. And after he spoke, what did he do? Lit up a cigarette. He lit up a cigarette. So my Rebbe asked him, I don't understand, you just spoke for 2 hours. You spoke for an hour. And, it's going to cut off years of your life. How can you do this? So he said, it's so enjoyable. It's so enjoyable. I'd rather cut off years of my life than give it up. I can't give it up. So, okay, we'll make a little bit of a difference here. So Christian's going to say, well, what? You think I've been lied to? How can I give it up? Right? But what's the main factor driving them? Some of them anyway. They don't want to fry in hell forever. They don't want to take that chance. What if for some reason it's true? If it's true. They're not saying, what are the alternatives? They'll say that after they come out of Christianity. But they're going to say, what do I do now? I'm not willing to take that chance. Unless someone has thoroughly examined, other information, and they realize that the whole thing is a crock. And once they realize, and they'll say, if JC was right in front of me, I'd punch him in the face, whatever, and they realize it's all a crock, then they're not going to worry about frying in hell forever. But they have to get to that point. And it's going to take a while to get to that point because you're going to hold on for dear life. What? Forget about the lifestyle. The main thing is, you're right, it's fear. 100% it's fear. Why would I give that up if there's the chance, if there's the chance that may be true? Right now, so we mentioned, person has to be careful, examine things to make proper decisions. If they don't follow the advice, right, of this rabbi, whoever it may be, they don't follow that advice. It's a very slippery slope, as we mentioned. Could have catastrophic ramifications. Why? Because you're asking a rabbinic scholar who is unbiased, totally unbiased, and they have a lot more knowledge, and they have a lot more life experience. So what do? They're going to be able to look at things in an unbiased way that you can't. Because we're all biased, for ourselves. We all want to say why this should be okay, all kinds of different things. For one very simple reason. We don't want to say it's forbidden for who knows, we got a lot of reasons why. But the reality is we may be relying on things we should never rely on. You need a higher authority. So someone will say, come on, what? You have to ask your rabbi every little thing you do? And what's the answer? No. But if there's things you're not sure on, and you want to make sure you get it right, and you don't want to go against what God says, right? Then you have to go to a higher authority. And, and every person, right? Every Jew, even if they're a rabbi, they need someone who they can go to. They need a higher authority they can go to. Right? We said before, way back when. We said that Kana l'charav, or Aseh l'charav, let's say better. Aseh l'charav, to make for yourself a rabbi. Now that means not just somebody, who knows more than you. It could be someone that knows as much as you. But you're asking them for advice because you're not sure which way to go. Right now, that may cost money also. Person has to be willing to pay, to get such advice. I'm not saying you have to, right? But, it might come down to that. So therefore, if you're getting advice, even if it's hard to take or to swallow, what should a person do? You should listen. Because if you don't listen, the repercussions could be catastrophic. Catastrophic. Therefore, it's important, it's crucial when someone needs advice and not sure what to do. They're not sure which way to go. They should speak to someone who's not biased in any way. Cannot have any bias. So too, just as a side point, a rabbinic court judge. Any case he's going to judge, if there's any level of bias, and he cannot see the thing straight because he's got some level of bias, he can't judge the case. He has to walk out of the case. Because he may go in favor of this person based on this bias and not based on the information at hand. You got to be a rabbinic court judge, got to be very, very careful. Right? The Code of Jewish Law speaks a lot about this idea and how careful they have to be. Because if they have any level of bias whatsoever, for instance, a rich person and a poor person come in. The rich person is saying the poor person owes X, Y, and Z, right? So what would a person think? Who are you going to go with? The poor person. He's had a hard life. He struggled. He's this. It must be the rich person trying to squeeze him. Well, what does the Torah tell me? Whether he's poor or not, you have to judge it like you don't know either one. Doesn't matter how they're dressed. Relevant. How they're dressed. There is what to say. Someone comes in, dressed in, a fancy suit or whatever. The other person comes in, throwing with a less fancy suit, etc. Right? So according to the Code of Jewish Law, really, they should come in wearing similar things. Why? It doesn't happen today, but what's the reason? Very simple reason. So the judges look at them as the same. If someone comes in with tattered clothing, they look disheveled. That makes an impression. Makes an impression. But the Torah says whether rich or whether poor, doesn't matter. You'll say, the rich person has an obligation to help the poor person. But if you only look at the poor person and you're going to say, okay, whatever he says, we're going to do because, he's had a hard life, it's also wrong. Totally wrong. You say, the rich person has to help the poor person, but the poor person stole from him, caused him damage. What are we going to do? Throw the whole thing out because he's poor? The judges have to look, doesn't matter how they look. Doesn't matter what their status is. There's even a question if one of them doesn't know very much, the other's a rabbinic scholar. And let's say the person's a well-known rabbinic scholar. So when the rabbinic scholar walks into the court, the judges stand up for him. It's an obligation to stand up for a rabbinic scholar. So if that's the case, how can they do that? They're showing bias. It looks like they're showing bias to the other person because it doesn't know as much. And therefore they're gonna say that whatever, this rabbinic scholar says they're gonna do, and they're gonna hold it against the other person. So why is it permitted for them to stand up? Because that's the obligation. They're not doing it because they're showing favoritism. They're doing it because when you see a rabbinic scholar, you should stand up for him when he walks in the room. Because you're standing up for the Torah that they've learned. That's the respect. That's why the Talmud says these foolish, stupid Babylonians, they stand up when the Torah is taken out of the ark. They don't stand up for a rabbinic scholar who represents what the Torah means. That's why they're foolish. Right? So now comes along a rabbinic scholar, walks into the court. Oh, they're biased. They're standing up for him. No. It had nothing to do with being biased. What does that have to do with? It has to do with the fact they're obligated to stand up for him. That's what it says. The Code of Jewish Law, rabbinic scholar walks in. You got to stand up for him. You got to show respect. This respect is not a bias. It's an obligation. It's an obligation that we have to do. Right? But I'm pointing out one very simple idea. And the idea is, even if they have to stand up for this rabbinic scholar, doesn't it look like they're showing a bias? That's the way it looks. Right? But the Code of Jewish Law says it's fine. It's not a problem. That's how far a rabbinic court judge has to go to make sure he's got no biases whatsoever. Because if he does have a bias, he can't judge the case. So here, we say that you got to speak to someone who's not biased. That way they can have a clear conscience what to do and go in the right direction. Now, what would somebody assume? We all know what happens when you make assumptions. But what would someone assume over here? If I go to a rabbinic scholar, I go to a rabbi, ask a question. All right, a little bit, let's say, of a sticky situation. Family's involved, other things. So he tells you, okay, I want you to do this, that, and the other thing. This is what you have to do. This is what your obligation is. Can I get away with this? No, whatever. He tells you what you have to do. And now you got to go back and do it. And now you're going to say, but if I do this, people are going to say things. You're going to make life, very uncomfortable, different things. And the only thing you can do is damage control. That's all you can do. And what's the rabbi going to tell you to do? That's what you have to do. See, my rabbi was very good. Straight. Very straight. 25 years. I told him, just tell me what to do. What do I do in this situation, that situation, the other situation? And he told me. And some of the things I heard were hard to do. Because nobody, not even me, nobody likes confrontation for no reason. Some may think I'm just confrontational, be confrontational. No. I need that like I need three heads. But if you have to say something, and you have to do something, and it's not popular, you got to do it. And there are people who don't want to stand up for themselves. They don't want the repercussions. They don't want to get yelled at. They don't want to be told off in different ways. And I've gone through a number of things. That happened, but I didn't wilt. I didn't flinch. It was painful to go through, but okay. That's what I was told to do. That's what I had to do. And in these cases, there was no way around it, right? Everyone's given a certain hand that they're dealt with. Torah, and I'm gonna patent this, so anyone who puts this out there, I will sue you, right? And that is, Torah is not a pretzel. You cannot, let's say better. You cannot turn the Torah into a pretzel. In other words,
too many try, though.
We'll make compromises within Torah if we have to. If it's viable, if we're allowed to. If I was telling someone the other day. Yeah. I was telling someone the other day. I was on a plane coming back from the States once, many years ago. Ran into an old friend of mine I went to yeshiva with. So I said, oh, what were you doing in the States? He said, oh, I went to a wedding. So I said, oh, mazel tov. He goes, well, not exactly. My sister married a non-Jew. Right? I've told this story before. Married a non-Jew. So I asked him, how are you allowed to go to the wedding? He said, no, everyone know I was there under protest. I said, oh, you were doing the horror under protest. You had your kosher food there with, who knows, mixed dancing, who knows what else, under protest. Now, as an Orthodox Jew, are you allowed to go to an intermarriage? Sibling gets married to a non-Jew. You represent Torah, God's law. And the Torah says many, many times, over and over, do not marry a non-Jew. Some people think, oh, it's only for that generation, only when they came into the land, only this. Today, they don't care. That is not an issue by anybody. So you intermarry, big deal. So what? You represent Torah. You can't say that. You cannot say it's good. You can't go to it. Someone asked me a question. I covered it in my Q&A, a couple weeks ago. And that was, What about you have co-workers that are homosexuals? Lesbian. In this case, they're a lesbian. So what are you allowed to say? Well, you're not allowed to say it's a good thing. If they don't ask you a question, you don't have to answer them. Right? Remember, if someone says, so we're getting married. Okay. They didn't ask you anything. If they would ask you, we're getting married. What do you think about that? You have to say it's forbidden. Torah says it's forbidden. Can you go to the wedding? No. Right? Even as a non-Jew, can't go to the wedding. Can you give a gift? No. How can you acknowledge it? You can't acknowledge it. Now, they're a co-worker. They didn't do anything wrong. You're right. That's not true. They did do something wrong, right? But at the end of the day, who says I have to say it's okay? And it's going down the slippery slope also because it's a family member. It could be a parent. Who knows? They want recognition. They want everyone to say it's okay. Be as open-minded as we said many times, and your brains fall on the floor. Yep. Problem is, the Torah says you can't do it. Can't give a gift, can't acknowledge it, can't say it's a good thing. Across the board, nothing talking about. There's nothing talking about. Someone said, if you were a rabbi of a synagogue, two homosexuals walked in, what would you tell them? I would tell them it's forbidden in the Torah. You're not getting special treatment here. You want to come, you want to listen, your choice. That behavior is not acceptable. To say they'll leave, so let them leave. As my Rebbe would say, if you're a rabbi of a synagogue and they're not driving you out or trying to drive you out, you're not doing your job right. You think you can accept everybody. The Torah is not that way. King David himself in Psalm says, those who you hate, I hate. Those who you love, I love. What does the Torah say about a homosexual? What does the Torah say about a homosexual? Chapter 18, verse 21. Book of Leviticus. I'm going to get there, I don't know, one day. Maybe when I'm about 98, finishing Pirkei Avot. Right? I'll get there. I'm still, I finally got, to part 9 of chapter 16. I'm only in the second verse. And that's more than 18 hours, 20 hours. Right? I only hit the second verse of part 2. Sunday, tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time. 4 o'clock Israel time. Right? So, Leviticus chapter 18, verse 21. What does the Torah tell me? You're not allowed to be a homosexual. You're not allowed to lie carnally, like someone to bring me Webster's fifth definition. It only says if you lie carnally, a man with a man, right? That's forbidden. That's an abomination. But being a homosexual isn't. Right? That's the whole point. If you're an acting homosexual, you're right. That's true. Then if someone has those thoughts or whatever, they don't act on it. Torah doesn't say that. That's why forbidden. It's the act that's forbidden. Thoughts, different issue. Different issue. Right? But at that point, you have to say it's forbidden. Oh, you're homophobic. You're right. The Torah's homophobic. Torah's anti-pig. Torah's anti a lot of things. Doesn't matter. You just don't understand it. That's it. Am I allowed to say it's a good thing? No. Am I allowed to say Mazel Tov? No. Am I allowed to give a gift for them? No. It's going to make my life uncomfortable. What's more important? Being uncomfortable in this world or going to the next world and getting slaughtered because you didn't stand up for God? It's a hard thing. It's a very, very hard thing. At the end of the day, better look like a fool and a bigot and all these different women haters and who knows what in this world than for 1 second to look bad in God's eyes. In other words, you look bad in the eyes of men. Who cares? What do I care what man thinks? I don't care what man thinks. Bottom line is I care what God thinks. If I care what God thinks, I got to be very, very careful. Very, very, very careful. So here, if I listen to what the rabbi says, you may get cursed. You may get yelled at. Family may say you're breaking up the family. You don't go to this. You don't do that. You don't do the other thing. Talk is cheap. Okay, so they'll say whatever they say. Right? In my case, my answer would be, I reconnected to a link in a chain that goes back 3,000 years. You're changing something that's only 100 years old, 150 years old. And the end result is you'll disappear and all the other Jews will disappear, except for us. So you want to say, oh, you're breaking up, you're doing this, reconnecting to history. Reconnecting to a rich history over here. So if that's the case, I haven't changed. You're the one breaking the chain. Right? So you know what the answer people have said to that? You're a fanatic.
No.
You're right, I'm a fanatic.
Good for you, Rabbi.
That doesn't change what I said. That doesn't mean it's not true. So just because a person gets advice, and they could get great advice, putting that advice into practice and getting slammed over the head for being, uncaring, not thinking, fanatical, you fill in the blank. Sticks and stones. But even if you get the right advice, does not mean you come out smelling like a rose. And people have to realize it. There are repercussions. But you see, when someone does something wrong and something so egregious, so yeah, you have to stand up for God. No question about it. We're getting closer to Purim, right? Another week and a half, less than 2 weeks to Purim. Haman gets upset. We mentioned this in the book of Esther. Haman gets upset because everyone's supposed to bow down to him. Who's the only person that doesn't bow down to? Mordechai. And he gets chastised. Why aren't you doing this? It's going to be repercussions, blah, blah, blah. He felt it was idolatry. He wasn't allowed to. So Haman's got all the power, got all the money, fame. He's got everything. And one Jew refused to bow down. One Jew decides to bow down. So what does he say? Not only am I going to destroy him, I'm going to destroy his whole nation. Now you have to understand why the Jewish people deserve to be destroyed. That's not the purpose for now. Not the topic for now. Point is that everybody said what he did is, a lot of people didn't like him, right? But at the end of the day, they validated him. They validated him. A person in this world wants to feel validated. If everyone in the world says, a Jew marries a non-Jew, nobody has a complaint except one Jew, except one sibling. That other person goes ballistic. You know why? Because he knows what the truth is. Every Jew has that inner spark. He knows what the truth is. And you delegitimize that person and their family. That's what you did. But they know what the truth is. They call you names, they say you're a fanatic, say this. And what's the simple
Albatross
answer?
again.
Yeah, the simple answer is that everyone in the world is going to say what you want to hear except for me. I'm going to be the conscious. Isn't that what Hitler, Yamach Shemoy, V'zichro, may they be blotted out, may rot? Didn't he say the Jews are the conscious of the world? The Jews brought morality to the world.
Mm.
Yeah, he was a rabid anti-Semite, no question. Right? But someone deep down who knows what the truth is. Even if 99.9% of the people say you're right, it's okay, it's not a problem, welcome the other spouse, everything's beautiful, get on my guitar, sing Kumbaya. But you, right-wing, fanatical, black hat, senses wearing, fanatical nutcase, says it's not okay. So what do you care? What do you care? It's 1 against a million. It's 1 against a billion. So what are you getting upset about? Why is there smoke coming out of your ears? Because you know what the truth is. Haman was a barber for 22 years. Sold himself as a slave to Mordechai, most people not aware of. He knew what the truth was. And he couldn't he couldn't stand the fact that one person's going to call him out on it. Achashverosh did the same thing. Why did he kill Vashti? Vashti was his claim to fame. Vashti, the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar, right? Famous king of Babylon. And he usurped the throne through his wife. But what was he before? Trivia question. What was Achashverosh before he became the king? He took care of the horses. He was a stable boy. So everyone's drunk at this 180-day party, and everyone's saying, our women are the most beautiful, our women are the most beautiful. Achashverosh says, nah, what are you talking about? My wife's the most beautiful. Say, okay, bring her out. Let's see her in her beauty, right? With just her crown, i.e. no clothes on. So she was willing to do it. She wasn't living in Victorian England. She was willing to do it. But what happened? Talmud says she grew a tail, put a tail on her, and she had tzara. She had like these spots all over her body. So she would have come out, but she didn't. Too embarrassed. So what did she tell Ahasuerus? Now you have to understand, she's the claim to the throne through him. The last thing he wants to do is delegitimize her and kill her. So what happens? She sends him a note. And she says, not only am I not coming out, he says, but I'm not coming out, you stupid stable boy. Oh, she reminded him of the past. She reminded him of the past. But that's his claim to fame. And what does he do? He kills her. He kills her. Totally against nature. But at that point already, he's going to find a new queen. Who does he find? Esther. Right? So the deed has been done, but guess what? It's what we call the refuah before the makkah. The antidote's given before it actually happens, before the hammer comes down, right, so to speak. So here, you know the absolute truth, but you're living a life of Coffman's language, a travesty, of a mockery, of a sham. So by doing so, one person tells you what the truth is, and you know what the truth is. Doesn't matter if 99.9% don't tell you that. And they tell you everything you want to hear. This one person tells you something you don't want to hear. Doesn't matter. Money, fame, all these things, not going to help. Not going to help because you know what the truth is. Right? You absolutely know what the truth is. So that's the problem. That's exactly the problem. So now, you, this one person, are going to say, you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. It's forbidden. And they're going to hammer you like no tomorrow. Oh, the Judaism, it's an antiquated religion, it's this, it's that, you're a fanatic, all these different things. But everyone else is telling them it's okay. The entire world's telling them it's okay except for one Jew over here. Maybe many others that just don't know the person. But they would say the same thing. We're all Orthodox Jews going to say the same thing. Intermarriage forbidden. Nothing to talk about. Right? I don't care, how liberal an Orthodox Jew may be. Intermarriage is forbidden. Right? They would even agree. Even on the left scale. The left side of being Orthodox. If they're still Orthodox. Right? They would tell you, 100% is forbidden. Does someone who's intermarried want to hear that? No. They want to be told it's okay. It's no big deal. Spouse doesn't have to convert. So what's the bottom line here? Bottom line is you're going to go to get advice from someone who's got a clear conscience. They're going to take you in the right direction. The right direction doesn't mean you get off scot-free. That there are no repercussions. There will be repercussions. Could be good repercussions. Could be bad repercussions. But a person has to realize there are certain situations. The Torah cannot be turned into a pretzel. It cannot.
Nor added to or taken away from, which is turning it into a pretzel, isn't it?
No, that's it. There are certain things that are black and white. There's no in between.
Yeah, let it remain holy.
Someone when I did the first video in Tanakh Talk, we're up to like 115, 116, right? We're catching them, right? The first video I did was about homosexuality. Now, someone made a comment on that video and said, "Come on, you're saying all this stuff. Homosexuality is based on sorcery, based on idolatry." Why they say that? Because it's a juxtaposition of verses. You got 20 verses or so in that chapter, Book of Leviticus chapter 18. What does it talk about? Forbidden relationships. These are all things we read when? On the afternoon service, we read the Torah on Yom Kippur. How severe, these things are. There is a verse there that speaks about idolatry. They're going to say, oh, look, there's a juxtaposition of verses. Since I know the juxtaposition of verses, it must mean homosexual is only forbidden, when it's done in an idolatrous way. Now, there is a question. It's a legitimate question. If you're talking about all these verses about immorality, what does that have to do with sorcery? Why is there a verse about sorcery? It's a good question. It's a legitimate question, especially if all the verses are intertwined, right? And they have one thing to do with another. But I have to ask you. This is what I said, then this is what I answered. And that is that if you have 20 verses out of 21, or 21 out of 22, all talking about forbidden relationships. It's very hard to tell me that I have one verse juxtaposed that's telling me the verse represents that about idolatry. Right? That's like a 98%, right? What's the, let me do the math here. All right, 1 second. 21 divided by 22. It's a 95% chance. All the verses, 95% chance, all talking about immorality. You want to tell me 0.5% chance that this particular verse about immorality only talking about idolatry? Come on, that's a little bit of a stretch. That's a little bit of a stretch. You know, if you told me it was 30-70, 40-60, 40% about immorality, 60% other, okay. Right? Maybe you have a claim, someone. If it's a 95% chance, that's a little bit hard to say. That's a little bit hard to say. Even if you want to tell me the verses are juxtaposed, we got to understand why. We got to understand what that verse is doing there. That is definitely true. But you can't tell me it's only based on that. That's a little bit much. So in a case where you have nowhere to turn, you can't turn right, you can't turn left. You have to do what you need to do. And the only thing is going to be when the dust settles and the smoke clears, the only thing you can do is damage control. That's it. You can't. We said again, this will be the third time, you cannot turn the Torah into a pretzel. So what am I supposed to do? Well, you got to find a way. There is no way. In this case, there's no way. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Where you're stuck in a situation, and I can tell you I was stuck in a number of situations, there was no possible way to turn left or right. There's no way to do it. No possible way. There's no possible way. If there's no possible way to turn in either direction, you have no choice. 100% you have no choice. Right? There's nothing you can do. There's totally nothing you can do. You're stuck. Now, nobody ever wants to be in such a position. But at the end of the day, we have to keep to the advice that our sages tell us, that our rabbinical authorities, whoever we go to. Because it doesn't mean, even if I listen, I did what God wants. How do I know? You're getting yelled at, screamed at, other things. How do I know that's what God wants? So very simple. And that is you're getting advice. The person knows what they're doing. They're a proper rabbinic scholar. You're getting proper advice. You don't go wrong. You don't lose out. Oh, the family said this. This person said that. You got yelled at, screamed at. That doesn't mean you lost. Totally doesn't mean you lost. You did what you had to do. You stood your ground. That's what you did. People said this, they said that. That doesn't mean you lost over here. Some people think that, there's a confrontation and people don't like to confront, okay? But sometimes you have no choice. And if you have no choice, you got to do what you got to do. Right? So in cases like this, even if they're not as severe, a person has a question which way to go, what to do, you have to ask somebody who's not going to be biased. And they're going to tell you if they're capable of doing so. They will tell you what to do. They will tell you what direction to go. And that might be hard to swallow. Right? And a person may say, how can I do this? They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. So again, would you really rather get laughed at, screamed at, made fun of, and everything else, in this world? Or would you rather, God forbid, do something wrong against God and take his wrath? You're going to say the other wrath is, at least I see what it is. As my Rebbe would say, no one's ever been in that world and come back. So you'll take the wrath from different people. You'll take what they say. It might not be easy to swallow. But at the end of the day, you don't go wrong. Being laughed at, being yelled at, that doesn't mean you went wrong. Right? And going in this path, now, people make the mistake, we mentioned this a lot, we'll mention it again. People make the mistake, I go in this path, everything's going to be easy. Right? Dan knows he's making plenty of money doing what he's doing, right, for the Noahide World Center. Right? Of course everything's going to go good and smooth. Doesn't mean that. doesn't mean that at all. But what a person has to realize is when they do the right thing and the repercussions are what they are, we are like Abraham himself. Right? I've heard this many times. I always say, I'm not Abraham, but he put in the world for us to be able to go through trials and tribulations. That's what he did. Went through a fiery furnace, wife got taken, had to fight the 5 world powers, save his only relative, Lot. He had to sacrifice his son, circumcision, right? All these different things. God's like, Abe, what do you think of my covenant? Boy, what a covenant. He was going to sign up. Does that mean it's so easy? It's not easy. But you don't go wrong by getting rabbinic advice if they know what they're doing. Right? But you have to listen.
Of course.
And it's not so easy. And it's not so easy to listen. Because deep down you know what the other person's going to say, you know what they're thinking, you know what possible repercussions are. You're walking into a lion's den. Who in their right mind wants to do such a thing? Not too many people are rabble-rousers to be rabble-rousers. Right? Who wants to break up family unless, they don't like their family, so it doesn't matter. Who wants to take the wrath of that? Nobody. Nobody wants that. But at the end of the day, you got to do what God says. As we said at the beginning, see, Torah is all intertwined. Kasher tzivas Moshe. God commanded Moshe. That's it. We do what he says. You don't like it? What did my Rebbe say? We said before, go eat kugel. You don't like it? Okay. Well, I think the Torah is this. And it's anti-pig. And it's so what? We got to do what we got to do. So, when we get more counsel, we get more understanding. Now, another explanation which we sort of mentioned before, but, it bears repeating, and that is, when I ask a question, I've done this many times. I ask my Rebbe a certain question, and I think I know what the answer is, and he comes out of something with, out of left field. And he'll say, no, it's like this, it's like that, it's like the other thing. I'm like, why? Why is it like this, like that? So tell me, right? If I'm right, if I'm wrong, could it be this, could it be that? All kinds of different things. Now, what does that do? What does that do? The more counsel, the more understanding. They're going to open your mind. They're going to open up doors in different ways. You're going to not think the same way you did before. That's the more understanding. You have to take it to heart. You have to live it. Okay, these are difficult things. But in the end, it opens up your mind. It opens up your mind to think in a way you normally wouldn't have thought before. Right? Because you might say, well, I'm not saying everything is, it's like that. Right? There are things that are, pretty black and white. There are things that's anywhere in between. Right? So you need advice. You need advice over here, but it opens your mind to think, well, I guess I didn't know this whole thing like I thought I might have. Right? Then you hear different perspectives, different things. It opens up your mind. Obviously, not that your brains fall on the floor, right? But it opens up your mind. It gives you more understanding, right? Because what are they giving you? They're giving you knowledge. They're giving you wisdom. They're giving you life experience. They're telling you, what the great rabbis, previous generations have said, etc. So that in and of itself should make a person understand more. Oh, you want to implement it? You want to implement it over here? Easier said than done.
Right.
Easier said than done. And the reason, again, is very simple, because it's hard. We may have to make unpopular stances. We might have to do that. And, it could be with family. It could be with parents. It could be with siblings. It could be with children. It could be any number of things. But at the end of the day, we need to do what we need to do. We need to do what's right in God's eyes. Doesn't mean we may have to compromise, where we're allowed to, in order for the sake of peace, if it's allowed. Even if you have to, let's say, you have to rely on opinion that a lot of people don't hold of, but, certain circumstances, maybe you can't, whatever the case is, okay. You may not like it, but you might be allowed to. So it depends on the situation. And again, I've been in a few situations where, there were certain ways around the situation, but, had to make certain compromises that weren't, I'm not going to say were enjoyable to do, because it didn't change anything. Totally didn't change anything. and people say, oh, well, of course you're obligated to be at this thing. Like, what would be the question? Well, there are a number of questions. There were totally a number of questions. But it wasn't like people saying, oh, wow, thank God, his Rebbe taught him Torah. Thank God he's a Torah observant Jew. That didn't come out. Oh, family harmony. I'm not going to say it's not worth anything. It's worth something. Right? Sometimes family harmony trumps other things. Again, you cannot just say, well, for the sake of family, I have to do this, that, and the other thing. Right? If it's something forbidden, there are things you can't do. There are just things you can't do. And if that's the case, you got to take a stand. And if you don't take a stand, it's a problem. You go to an intermarriage, punishment pretty severe. Person cuts themselves off from the Jewish people. How in the world can you say that's okay? God's going to say, what? You couldn't stand up for me? You couldn't say anything? It's not like God himself will say, what? I got nobody here to defend me. You're in a specific situation, right? You are in a specific situation. So by being in that situation, there are things you can't do. And the repercussions may be unbelievable. But if you're listening to Das Torah, you're listening to that rabbinic authority, wherever you go to, you don't go wrong. You don't lose. Doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter, I know somebody, or of somebody, that their father was very wealthy. Very, very wealthy. And they said, listen, I'm willing to give you a huge chunk of money. Huge chunk of money. If you don't listen to this Rabbi Sturma. I'll give you all this money if you don't listen to this rabbi. Now, of course, they didn't listen. Now you're going to say, but look, they lost out. You don't lose out. God's got a lot of messengers. A lot of messengers. You don't get money that way, you can get money other ways. That person doesn't rule the world. Oh, it might be a multi-billionaire, and really, you can help a lot of people with his money, etc. What are you going to do? Who comes first? God or money? That's the way a person is tested, the Gemara says, by what he does with money. Right? With his pocket. So what are you going to say? I'll give you $1 million. I'll give you all this money if you desecrate Shabbos. I want you to come to this thing on Shabbos. Can't do it. All the money in the world. Got to lose. But you never lose. One of the songs we sing on Shabbos is that Shabbos guards us. It guards the Jewish people. You don't lose out by keeping Shabbos. Shabbos protects us. Right? You're going to say, well, if I don't work on Shabbos, my competitor's going to do better, this and that. The same God who can give you a livelihood 7 days a week can also give you a livelihood 6 days a week.
And no days a week.
Exactly. Right? So God can do anything. Right? First worry about money, this and that. God's got the biggest bank in the world. He can change anything like the blink of an eyelash. I can tell you my own life. Many stories. Things turned overnight. Just, money you weren't expecting, this, that. Many things. God can change anything overnight. Overnight. Right? I know I mentioned this before. Tremendous self-sacrifice. Unbelievable self-sacrifice. Suffered tremendously. God opened up 50 doors in the past year. 50 doors. Did he suffer? Oh, yeah. Had a lot of difficulty. A lot of difficulty. God saw self-sacrifice met in the sea split. Doesn't happen overnight. In general. Right? When God sees something in a person, begging for mercy and this and that, but God says, okay, he's taking the jump. He's not showing ben aminadov. Right? So not showing ben aminadov. The Egyptians are coming. He jumps in the ocean. He jumps in the water. Sea doesn't split. He keeps going. He says, God, I know you're going to split it. He keeps going. Everyone says, Nakshan, go. Right? He keeps going. It's up to his neck already. They say, Nakshan, good job. We were behind you, but, it was a good try. And then all of a sudden the sea split. And then everyone said, see, Nakshan, we know you can do it. We're behind you all the time. What happened? You need to self-sacrifice. You need to jump in. So, when God sees self-sacrifice at a very serious level, things can change. Things can change overnight. We may think, oh, come on, this has gone on for so long, it's not going to change. Not true. Not true. I mentioned my own story, right? We mentioned this story before. Lost my job, couldn't get compensation, right? Couldn't get unemployment. So I said, fine, you want to do, what you want to do, you got to do like a job. 8 hours a day. You got to make videos, blogs, this, that. How many students I get a month? 2, 3, maybe, if I was lucky. Right? And, some didn't pay, whatever the case was. Within 3 months, I had 18 students, 15 students in 3 months. Less.
Amen.
Less than that. Right now, in my wildest dreams, in 13 years or 10 years I've been doing this, according to nature, is it going to happen? No. I have to find something else to do. Fine. I said I gave myself a month, not even. Not even. And God turned it around within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, I had a whole bunch of students and most of them were paying. Overnight, I'm still reaping the benefits. Overnight. Now, why did God change it? I don't know. Could be my mantra change, whatever it was. Whatever it was, it changed overnight. Something I expected, according to nature, I would have said, all the money you and I don't have together, I would have put down and said it's a 0% chance. It's not going to happen. Maybe I'll get 1, maybe I'll get 2. If I'm lucky, maybe I'll get 5. If that's, only happened randomly, seemingly randomly. The odds of that happening are about 0. So whatever changed, God changed it overnight. Overnight. Changed everything overnight. So, a lot of things can happen. But what does God want to see? He wants to see self-sacrifice. He wants to see a person going to do what he needs to do, regardless whether he's thrown to the wolves or not. Regardless whether he has it hard or not. That's what he wants. You know what? We pray a heck of a lot better when we suffer. That's for sure, because if everything's going easy, don't pray as well. What do I need to pray for? Everything's easy. Everything's going easy. So we have to realize where it all comes from. And the mantra is, God, you're the one in charge.
For sure.
100%. I might have put myself in this situation, maybe. But even if you're the one who put me in this situation, I'm doing the best I can. You're the one to take me out of it. That's it. That's the mantra. You're the one 100% in control. We're not in control. We're not in control of anything. Right? So now, I'll say, that kind of ends. The more counsel, the more understanding. Right? We've spoken about it a lot, so I'll end it there. I'll make you happy. The next part of the Mishnah, I don't know if we're going to finish it. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. We'll have to speak about this as well. The more charity, the more peace.
Peace.
Right now, obvious question. What does this mean? Seemingly simple explanation, I would say. That if a person gives charity, they help someone else. That's going to bring peace to the world, because you're putting your hand in your pocket. You're giving to someone else, money that you worked hard for. Right? Let's say it's not inheritance or whatever. You worked hard for it, and you give to someone else. You give to someone else. Now, why are you giving it? God says I have to give it. But don't you feel good? You're able to help somebody. Person will feel good. It's always better to give than to have to receive. Right? I've been on both ends. If you can give it, give as much as you can give. I'm saying within reason. You don't have to put yourself, in the poorhouse to do it. Give what you can give. Right? But it's better to be able to give than to have to receive. So now, how do I know this? How do I know it's going to bring more peace? Because I got a verse in the book of Isaiah. Book of Isaiah, chapter 32, verse 17. It says, the product of righteousness shall be peace. The effect of righteousness, quiet and security forever. Righteousness over here means, what am I doing? I'm giving to myself. Person would say, why, why should I give money to X or whatever it is? Let them work hard for it. This person's struggling, so what? Let them work hard. I worked hard. Look what happened to me. Why should I have to give someone else? Just because they're down, it's not my problem. Right? That'd be cruel. Because if God gave you, even if you only give a little bit, if God gave you and someone needs, you should help them. You should definitely help them. Now, what does this mean as well? It means if a person helps someone else, it's going to bring peace. Peace means over here with everyone. In other words, they get along with many people. If they're doing the right thing, people will honor them. People will respect them. Right? In other words, if they're helping others. In general, I'm not saying, they're a multimillionaire and they're giving out tens of thousands of dollars. They help others when they can help. If someone comes to them for help. And they help them. Right? They absolutely help them. So a person like that, is more respected. And therefore other people are going to honor them. Now, if someone helps someone else out, is that what we're looking for? We're not looking for honor. We should run away from honor. Right? We're not interested in being honored, necessarily. But at the same time, what did the Mishnah say way back when? The Mishnah said, the more maidservants, the more thievery. Right? So we spoke about that. That's going to be a disgrace. And having more maidservants, what does it bring? It brings immorality. Totally brings immorality here. So if a person helps somebody else, when they're down, they're bringing light to the world. Jews, exponentially, are greater givers to charity than any other group combined. Why? Because the Gemara says, what are character traits of someone who's Jewish? They are Baishanim, Rachmanim, Vegimul Chasodim. They get embarrassed easily. They have compassion for others, right? Biggest leftists out there are Jews. They can have compassion even for the craziest of people and the craziest of things. But they have compassion for others. It's a Jewish concept. And they do Gimilus Chesed. Right? We spoke about this at the very beginning. The world stands on chesed. One of the things, stands on acts of loving kindness.
Right. You
go into any ultra-Orthodox community, in the world. And they have what they call gamachim. They have people that, if a person, let's say, didn't have challah for Shabbos. Someone has the gamach for that, they have extra challah. Or medicine, even better. Can't get to the pharmacy, whatever the case is, and they have a medicine gamach of all kinds of things. You just have to replace it. You can't get to the other place. Lawnmower gamach. Your lawnmower's down. Your backyard's like a jungle, and someone allow you borrow a lawnmower, get faxes, get emails, different things, all over the world. In secular Jewish communities or non-Jewish communities, that doesn't exist. These things are free loan society. People have, people have money they can loan, right? For free. You just have to have, people sign on it, whatever. Guarantee you're going to pay it back. These type of things do not exist in any other community. None. One of the things that a friend of ours, one of their kids is looking for the for the upcoming wedding is what they call wedding shtick. All kinds of things. They have they have all kinds of things. They have these shoes that light up. People, dance, all kinds of things. All kinds of things. So you go to a place that has it, and whatever, and hopefully, they have it in stock, etc. You go there and you borrow it. I don't know if you have to put a down payment or not. Just leave a blank check if something gets ruined or whatever. Right? Whatever the case is, they're allowing you to borrow this. Like I said, in any other community, it's unheard of. It's totally unheard of. Helping other people with these type of things in your own community, what are you afraid of? You'd be afraid they're going to steal, they're going to abuse it, they're going to misuse it, etc. But here's an unbelievable thing. Imagine medicine. A person's sick, they need a certain medicine, they can't get to the pharmacy, and someone they say, oh, do you have this medicine in stock? They say, yes. You run over, you borrow it, and you got a certain amount of time, you have to replace it. That's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. Many other things. I only mentioned a few. Like tons. Tons of things. Person needs, let's say, a special pillow or whatever for the sake of circumcision. Put the baby on. Or something like that. They have that. They have all kinds of things. in the secular Jewish community, in the secular world in general, that doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. None of these things exist. Right? They can say whatever they want about us. We are the greatest. We are the greatest. We're the, when it comes to doing these type of things, no one compares. Nobody. We're, the UJA, the United Jewish Appeal. You know how much money they raise even for bad things, mostly bad things? They raise like almost $500 million or more a year. The Jewish people are 1/1000th of the world's population. Been condemned more than anyone else, Israel, right? Being condemned more than anyone else in the UN combined, right? Well, we're the biggest givers out there exponentially. Exponentially. Now, again, you'd say, wow, that's lucky. What do you mean it's lucky? It has nothing to do with luck. It's inherent in a Jew. It's something inherent inside themselves. It's part of their DNA. Right? But to raise that kind of money. So, and we're 1/1000th of the world's population. So, we're living in the wealthiest generation today. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. I just saw recently someone, organizations are raising money, for the Jews. There are more than 100,000 Jews in the Ukraine, raising money. They raised more than $1 million in a very short amount of time. Very short amount of time. We're the greatest givers. Now, giving's not an easy thing. A person has to be trained to put their hand in their pocket. That money's only given to us
for a purpose.
It's like collateral. God's going to see what we're going to do with it. And again, it doesn't matter if a person doesn't have a lot of money. They give what they can give. Right? But when a person gives to someone else, God understands it's not an easy thing to do. Because the last thing we want to do is, why would I give money to someone else? Why would I lend money to someone else? Right? The laws of ribbis, of lending, a Jew lending to a Jew with interest, it's forbidden. We're allowed to lend Jew to a non-Jew, right, with interest, but not a Jew. Now, Tom would ask the question, but isn't this logical? Wouldn't it be logical if I were to lend somebody $100? And I say, you know what, for that $100, I want 110 back. 120 back. Why? I'm lending you my money. My money's not doing anything. So I want to get benefit. You're not allowed to. Now, that would make perfect sense. Go to any bank. They're lending you money, whatever it's for. You don't think they're gonna tack on interest? Of course. Of course they're gonna tack on interest.
That's how they keep the doors open.
Right. Why would they not want to make money? That wouldn't make any sense. But the Torah tells me that you're not allowed to lend money with interest to a Jew to a Jew.
But are you under obligation to give it?
Right. But let's say you write a document. Right? Reuven is going to lend Shimon money. Reuven lending him $100. Shimon agrees to pay back 120. Now, Reuven and Shimon both transgress. The one who wrote the document transgresses. The witnesses over there transgress. And the people who are doing it lose their portion of the world to come. It's a very, very severe prohibition. Now, when you look at it logically, it makes no sense. Like most of the Torah, right? About 80% of the Torah doesn't make sense.
Logically.
Now, why doesn't it make sense? Because again, if I lend money to someone else, and my money's not doing anything, why should I make money from it? Now, a person, if they're in dire straits, they're having difficulty, they go to someone and say, listen, can you lend me, $500? $500. And the other person knows they're having difficulty. Now, if the other person says, sure, I'll lend you that money, it's going to cost you $550. That'd be doesn't matter who the person is, unless they're the mafia. It doesn't matter who the person is. That would be an act of cruelty. Because they know the person's down. I'm not saying they're drug addicts, your line of work over here. I'm not saying they're wasting their lives and they're working hard. They're struggling. Right? They're legitimately struggling. Some person can say, let them do other things. Let them do things on the side. Why are they coming to me? Right? But a person, if they're not asking for a lot of money, right? And a person would say, blow it out of your ears, I'm not going to help you, or I'm going to charge you interest, that would be a real act of cruelty. Now, if someone comes and say, listen, can you lend me $20,000? Can you lend me a chunk of money? Even if they have it, they're going to think once, twice, three times. First thing they're going to say is, how are you going to pay it back? Right? That's the first thing they're going to say. Then you can try and make conditions, other things. But for a Jew not to help out another Jew, see, we always look out for our own. And I don't, and people say, oh, that's racist and this and that, right? I mentioned this story. I was telling someone this story the other day, and they almost fell off their seat. I've told this story before. I had a relative, very, very rich relative. They were so rich, and, when I was a kid, they had a butler. That's how rich they were. So they helped raise $100 million. $100 million for a non-Jewish charity. Now, I'm not going to say they didn't get credit for that. They probably got some level of credit for that. But imagine all the orphans, widows, Jewish schools they could have helped, gotten out of the red. And they didn't merit it. So imagine they had all these people at the funeral. And this person, I'm not saying they gave the Hadassah, they gave the other things, Jewish education, let's say, I wouldn't probably say it's the greatest things to give to, whatever. Let's say they get some level of credit for that. Okay. But here, if they're getting praised, imagine at the funeral where the soul is hovering over the body and the soul can hear everything. And they're getting all this praise for raising all this money. Some of it was their own money. They helped raise the money, whatever it is. That soul is going out of its mind because that soul understands what absolute truth is. And they're saying, you're killing me 10 times over because now I understand I could have given it to proper things. And they didn't. So God gave them all that money for what reason? Maybe to wipe them out in the next world. I don't know. For whatever reason. But they didn't have a merit to give to the right place. I'm not saying they gave it to save the whales, whatever. Animal reserve, who knows? They gave it to a charity. That's already, all right, that's already something. Why'd you give it to a non-Jewish charity? I'm not saying it's not a legitimate charity. It's a legitimate charity. Right? But they, how much credit they could have gotten if they would have given the proper things. And now they know the absolute truth and they're going to get slammed for that. God's going to say, why didn't you give it to, this? Oh, I didn't believe in it. Why didn't you believe in it? Now they see absolute truth, now they're cornered. So that's going to be part of what hell is. Because now they understand what absolute truth is. They have nothing to answer. They gave all, they helped raise all this money for something that they never should have given that amount of money to. They should have given to other, proper organizations. So now they know, but they can't take it back. They can't change it. They can't repent for that. That's what a form of hell is. That's a total embarrassment of having your hand caught in the cookie jar. And now you have to say why your hand was in the cookie jar. And now you have to explain, knowing that you don't have one excuse. You're going to say, I didn't know, I should have listened, It's too late. See, we make a lot of excuses. Why we don't do things, why this, why that. But at the end of the day, after 120 years, ain't no excuses. We're not going to be able to make excuses. We're going to have to answer, isn't it true? Mm-hmm. Anyone who's ever had an out-of-body experience, Jew or non-Jew, what's the first thing they say? The soul hovers over the body, want to go to this great light, they see their life flash before their eyes. Every last thing they did. That's going to be a hard thing. So they can't deny it. They can't deny their hand was in the cookie jar. The hand was in the cookie jar. Play the video. It was in the cookie jar. You can't say it wasn't there. So we're our own worst enemy. We're going to have to answer. But here, a person gives charity. They give to the right place. They help others. Tremendous thing. Because the reality is, we don't want to help others. What does our natural inclination say? It doesn't matter how we're born, what our psyche is. What would our natural inclination say? Why should I give of myself to help you? Why would I do that? I worked hard for it. I put myself through school. I did this, I did that. It's all about me. So why do I have to help someone else? So let them work hard. Let them, But some people, they'll hit a soft spot. And they'll give. They'll give a lot, whatever. But a lot of people, I shouldn't let them work hard. Let them, would play Monday morning quarterback. But, they'll say, well, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? Why should I help you? Or there are people that won't be empathetic. Kind of like, I was once in New York and I was running for the train, running full speed, and I put in my token and it got jammed. And I went flying about 20 feet. Someone looks over and it's like, man, that looks like it hurt. Just kept walking. I'm like, I think I'm in the wrong place. Someone can say, wow, you must have really suffered. You must have really gone through difficulty. Pass the potato chips. No empathy. No empathy. Oh, but you could have done this, you could have done that, could have done the other thing. When a person's down, they don't want to hear Mussar. They don't want to get kicked upside the head. They don't want that. They're struggling as it is. Right? Again, I can tell you from personal experience. You don't want to hear that. Maybe you did make bad decisions. Okay. Maybe true. But why should I help you? I don't even respect what you do. There's another issue. So let God help you. Why you don't pray hard enough? Why doesn't God help you over here? That was a famous question. Tornus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva. Tornus Rufus, Roman general, asked Rabbi Akiva, if your God can do anything, why does he have so many poor people? Can he take care of all the poor Jews? Rabbi Akiva said, of course he could. So why doesn't he? To allow people that have money to help poor people in order that they should have a portion of the world to come. Because if you didn't have poor people, people that have money wouldn't give charity. They wouldn't help out others. That was Rabbi Akiva's answer. So, you're right. The person has to pray and has to work hard. And is that a guarantee? Right? You'll tell me it's not a guarantee. Big expert in CG work? Hire him. Somebody, anybody out there. Right? Is that a guarantee? You're doing a lot of great work. Give you a big plug over here. Buy him a cup of coffee. Doing unbelievable work. Does that mean, you're going to make dollars and cents over here? Doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. And the people are, sweating left and right, giving classes, helping others. They're not living the lap of luxury. Most people. They're not. Right? Some people have more, some people have less. To struggle. Life is a daily struggle. Because of what happened with Adam and Eve, we have to work hard. We have to work by the sweat of our brow. Nothing's given to us on a platter. If we do what we're supposed to do, Talmud says, then everything else will be taken care of. But we don't. We're not living at that level. You're going to say, but I still have to live. You're right. Some people have it easier, some people not. Right? We've spoken about this before as well. The idea is sometimes the person's going to get squeezed because God wants to hear him pray better, stronger. Have unbelievable faith in him, and then God takes care of the rest, whenever that may be. Or maybe not, right? Don't we know by Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, they didn't have children for a long time. Sarah never should have had children. Right? According to nature, she shouldn't have had children. So one of the commentaries tell us, God loves the prayers of the righteous. Well, what's the obvious question on that? What? God's a masochist? God forbid. What does he want over here? Why does he want them to pray from the depths of their hearts? Because doesn't a woman more than anything else want to have a child? A natural child. Right? Most women, I shouldn't say all. I've heard women say, I don't want to have kids. Not interested in having kids. Right? Okay, but most women want to have at least one child. Natural child. So, that being the case, if that's the most natural thing, didn't Rachel say to Yaakov, give me children? And he yells at her. He said, what, am I God over here? Doing what I can do. God's the one in control, not me. Yaakov gets chastised for that. To a certain level. To a certain level. Point is, that when a person is under duress, they pray a lot better. They pray a lot better. But you got to show God something also. God is only going to open up the alleyway, the sea, let's say better. He's going to split the sea when he sees absolute self-sacrifice. And he sees that a person says the mantra we mentioned many times. The mantra is, God, you are the one in control. You're the one who's going to bring about the salvation. I got to put my best foot forward, but you're the one in charge. And a person can see, a person says, I keep saying that day in and day out, nothing's happened. Prayers never go to waste. Make no mistake, it doesn't go to waste. It never goes to waste. Right? I'll give you an example. There was a soldier, Nachshon Waxman, of blessed memory, was taken by Hamas. I think it was by Hamas. And the Israelis knew where he was. So they went in to save him. And the door, when they blew it up, didn't blow up and whatever. They ran in, bullets flying all over the place. They killed the terrorists, but the soldier died. Nachshon Waxman was killed. So they asked the father, an Israeli reporter, asked the father, so what happened to all the prayers of the Jewish people? All over the world, people were praying for salvation, that he should be saved. Right? So what would the normal reaction be? The normal reaction would be, prayers don't go to waste, God just said no. In this case, he said no. But that wasn't what he said. He said, if you ask any of the soldiers that went in on that mission, none of them should be alive. Grenades are going off, bullets flying.
Small
The answer was they all got saved. It's just it wasn't my son that got saved. In other words, it was miraculous. Anyone got saved. So those prayers didn't go to waste. So we may think, I keep praying, and things don't change. So now I would say like this. God wants to see something over here. Praying's not enough. In other words, prayer is good. That's our obligation, right? Certainly for Jews, non-Jews to a certain extent. But we have an obligation to pray 3 times a day, all you Jewish men out there, right? Hopefully you're not listening right now on Shabbos. But the bottom line is, we have an obligation to pray. Does that mean what I'm going to pray for, God's going to say, okay, I'm going to give it to you? We may think it's good. God may say, no, it's not good. But we have plenty of things to pray for. Many, many things. And if God doesn't answer, meaning that doesn't change, okay, that doesn't mean I don't keep praying for it, right? If it's one of the things we have to keep in mind when a person does pray, a person should say, God, whatever you want me to have, I should have. Whatever you think is good for me, right? We say the prayer for sustenance that we have in mind for livelihood. The person's going to say, but I needed more money. I needed this. I needed that. God says, but I'm going to give you this amount. But you're going to say, well, I need more. I need this, like whatever. So in the end, God knows what he's doing. He knows how much to give a person. Some may struggle more, some less, all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, we're praying that God does what he thinks is right for us. But again, we have to show him. We have to demonstrate we're worthy of the blessing. Because remember, even if a person wants to pray for someone else, say in the name of the Pirkei or Yisrael Soloveitchik, a blessed memory, he said you want to pray for someone else to change, to be better, to go in the right way. If they're a proper vessel, that prayer can have effect. If they're not a proper vessel, it won't have an effect. You're going to say, what? I can't pray for someone to change and this and that. I'm not saying you can't. The Pirkei said if they're not a vessel to want to change or to go in that way, then that prayer is not going to matter. That prayer is not going anywhere. Now, others would disagree. Others would say when a person prays for the well-being of someone else and that they should change, we're hoping it works its magic in a way where it gets a person to think about what they need to do. Something, I don't know, inspires them, whatever it is, gets them to a certain point. And we hope that wakes them up. The Brisker Rov would say it's not going to help. Others would disagree. As we said before, prayer doesn't go to waste. Doesn't go to waste over here. So back to our points, and that is when a person gives to someone else, he understands the money's really not his. Even subconsciously. Right? He doesn't have to say it. But he realizes, I've been blessed. Why should I help others? Now, to whatever extent, doesn't really matter. Right? But they understand. They understand if I've been given, why, doesn't have to necessarily be money. What if a person doesn't have a lot of money to give? They have other ways to give. They can, let's say a person's a financial wizard. They can help people give business advice. Help startups, different things. That's also charity. Right? They're not interested in getting paid for it, but they want to help others. They want to help others what they've been blessed with. That's a huge thing. Now, the question is, if he's trying to make a living out of it, okay, that's a different issue. Right? But I'm saying where someone is giving of themselves. Because Ramosha Schneider, blessed maybe my Rebbe's Rebbe, one of the students in the yeshiva, they also have to give charity. Yeshiva students, most people know, they don't work. They learn all day. They don't work. So if that's the case, how are they gonna do charity? How are they gonna give charity? So he said they'll give charity by working with younger students twice a week. They'll help them if they have questions, different things. Right? So that not only helps the younger students, it helps the older students as well. Get clarity in their learning, and all kinds of things. So he said that had a tremendous effect. But they can't give money. So charity is not all about money. It could be about donating time to help someone. Give advice if a person give advice. I'm not saying a person, if a person wants to donate that time, very good. It's going to help the other person, help you also. Also get clarity in other things. So the person never loses. Problem is, we're selfish. We're selfish from a very young age, from the time we're born. From the time we're born, we're selfish. All baby needs to do is, cry and scream. Either they need to be fed or changed or, maybe they're sick, whatever the case is. Right? But they're takers. They are takers, not givers. And when they get older, it gets worse. There's such a thing, and I can speak about this tomorrow. There's such a thing called entitlement. People think they're entitled to certain things. Someone told me a story. My wife told me a story about, some people, some girls that get married, whatever, 19, 20, whatever it is, they buy these wigs that are, astronomical in price. Let's say $5,000, or more. They can be astronomical. I mean, you can get for less. Not the same quality, whatever, fine. So this woman who's going to be, working on my daughter's hair and, on her wig and whatever for the wedding day, different things. So she said it's pretty amazing because she's been doing this for all my girls. She said, your girls don't expect anything. They're happy with what they have. Obviously, because I don't have a lot, but he says, I see girls come in and, they have these $5,000 shadels, $5,000 wigs, and they think they're entitled. And their parents don't have so much money. And they make their parents buy these wigs. It's like, of course I'm going to have it. All my friends have it. That almost costs what you could get for the hall. Just renting the hall, and food in some places for that amount of money. That's insane. Someone has the money, they want to, okay. But, if you're struggling as it is, and then the kid says, this is what I'm entitled to. So my answer would be fine. You want to get it, you're going to pay. You pay half. you want to pay half. Pay more than half. This is the amount we're going to give. That's it. And they could resent it. They could totally resent it. In today's generation, the friend of mine would say the cream puff generation. They say, listen, I keep Torah, I keep mitzvahs, I go to yeshiva, I do this, like, give me some slack over here. I'm going in the right direction. But I want, whatever. I want certain things. Entitlement. Entitlement's also a disease. What are you entitled to? Parents work hard. Okay, they'll give you what they can give. But I want what my friends have. Forget what your friends have. We're not in that bracket. Well, their parents are doing it, so what? Maybe they borrowed the money to do it. Yeah, I should borrow money for that. This is the amount we're giving. That's it. And, and they could get very upset and say, but, this, that, and the other thing doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's a certain thing today where it's out of control. People think I deserve this, that, and the other thing, and
they bury themselves in debt. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are people that are willing to put themselves tremendously in debt. Help their kids buy an apartment or whatever. And it makes sense because you're paying rent for nothing. You're not getting anything in return. Helping someone pay off their mortgage, which is understandable. At the same time, you get a lot of kids to marry off. Where are you going to get the money from? So if you own an apartment, what do people do? Some people sell the apartment, buy a smaller apartment, marry off a few kids, and then maybe refinance it, marry off a couple other kids. But you can only do that can't do that forever. So you help them out, but you're putting yourself in precarious situation. Now, some people do that. Some people absolutely do that. That's obviously it's not financially smart. But they say, if I want to get the, best marriage part of this and that, that's what you got to do. Not true. I got 4 kids. 3 married, 1 on the way. None of my kids, I didn't buy them apartments. One of them, got money somewhere else, finagled their way. So, they bought an apartment. Now, my other 2 don't. I mean, one was given an apartment through, they had an apartment, whatever. So, these kids, they're not going to have an apartment. They'll save up, this, that, whatever. But, who says there's a mitzvah to put yourself tremendously in debt for that? Some people will do it. I'm not going to say not. Some people will do it. I went to a wedding a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine, and he said, he's got 5 more kids to marry off. And the rest, the other kids, they don't own apartments. They don't own apartments. They don't have the money for it. So who are they going to marry into? They're going to marry people in similar situations that are not crazy demanding certain things. There are people that are. Okay. That's one of the first things you're going to talk about is money. Right? So if a family sees, you don't have money, you're not willing to put, X amount down, they may pass. Okay. Yeah, I'm not saying everybody's looking into that, but, I do understand the issue. I just saw over the last quarter, I think, they say that, apartments here in Israel up 11%. They're always going up. They're not going down. If anyone who wants to buy, they have to go outside Jerusalem, whatever, other outlying areas, because, it's cheaper, but, you got to go, far out, a number of places. Okay. But at the end of the day, someone's going to say, so why do people do that? Why would the person put themselves in debt for such a thing? So again, they want to get the best match for their kid. I get it. At the same time, it makes perfect sense if, why should people waste money on rent and they don't have anything to show for it? It's also true. Yeah, it's also very true. But, who said the person has to do that? You're right. It's a problem. I'm saying not. And if you don't have the money, what are you going to do? Then someone told me a story. Somebody that their father died and they got an inheritance. What was the inheritance? $350,000 of debt. That was the inheritance. Right? They got all this debt to pay. They can say, well, we go get into a whole discussion whether they're obligated to pay the debt, they're not obligated to pay the debt. Fair enough, kids. Shit. Costs money. Get anything else. So some people, do a different way. Whatever it is. Like someone told me once, oh, so you need this amount to marry off, to marry off a kid. I said, I don't have it, and I married off 3. Oh, but don't they ask for this and that? I said they can ask for what they want. I said this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Take it or leave it. You want to think you're going to squeeze money out of me that I don't have? I'm going to go into debt? That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Right? You're still going to pay for the wedding, different things, fine. Right? But who says I have to go $150,000 in debt and figure out where the money's going to come from? Even if I could borrow the money. Who's going to do that? There are people that will do it. I'm not going to say not. They'll do it. And they'll put themselves, into hock and whatever. Right?
Brutal.
There's no mitzvah in doing so. There's no mitzvah in doing so. I know somebody got a lot of kids, marrying off a child, I think like 2 weeks after.
Well, where's the line of spoiling them?
And his Rebbe told him, he had to cough up like $30,000. Like buy an apartment somewhere, whatever. This person doesn't have money, he's in debt himself. He's got a lot of kids to marry off. That's what he pledged. Right? Now, again, there is a mentality here. There is a mentality that, in Israel, it's funny. You live in a war zone over here, and I think it's like in the top 5, of countries that have the highest percentage of people owning their property. Which doesn't make any sense at all. Considering most people don't make a lot of money, right? But you don't have the problem of the mortgage problem that you had in 2008 because you got to put at least 30% down on an apartment. And they're not going to let someone buy an apartment if they don't think they can pay it. So they want to be financially secure. So you're not going to have that problem. You're not going to have that bubble, but you have to come up with the money. You might have to come up with $50,000, $100,000, something like that. So there is a mentality. You figure out how to get the money. You buy a kid an apartment. And that's part of the conditions, back and forth with the other side. Now again, if you don't have the money, then that's one of the first questions going to be asked. Is how much would you be willing to pay? Are you willing to support them for a certain number of years? Different things. Because, person's learning not making so much money. The question is, what's the girl doing? She bringing in money, whatever. Certain things the person may have to do. Or if they can't do it, they'll say, I can't do it. I know someone they just married off the last child a month ago, or whatever. I don't think any of them they supported in learning. They have money to support. They married to great families. One of the families, the other side is supporting one of their kids in learning. Oh, they have money. They have plenty of money. Okay. He didn't promise anything. And he had 3 girls. He didn't promise anything. He doesn't have. But they married into good families. So I digress there a point. I just want to, make people understand, there's a disease out there in a certain way. It's called entitlement. And people think, okay, I'm doing this, this is coming to me. What do you mean it's coming to you? If a person doesn't have, you're going to expect them to have 4 heart attacks trying to figure out how they're going to pay all this back and then they have to marry off other kids? Go through the whole thing again? Right? That's insanity. It's insanity. But some people are going to do it. There may be a lot of people willing to do it. Okay. There are people who are not going to be able to do it. They won't do it. So who are they going to marry? And this I was told many years ago. My kids were young. Someone told me many years ago, what's going to happen? You'll marry into similar type families. That's what you do. And they'll get married. Like this friend of mine said, all his kids that are married, they don't have a partner. He didn't buy them. The other side didn't have money. They didn't have money. Okay. Right? So what are you going to do? They're married to good families. Beautiful families. So, no one says you're obligated to put yourself in a debt for such a thing. In serious debt. Now, it does make sense, logically. Better to buy something, or at least even if you're not going to live there, rent it out, so at least, that offsets the rent, or whatever. But, who says, Who says you have to do that? Makes sense. I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense. If you don't have, you don't have. Like, prices here in Israel through the roof. I mentioned before that I think Israel's the second most expensive place to live outside of Switzerland. Food-wise, otherwise, second most expensive place to live in the world. People survive somehow. Barely make it to the end of the month, whatever it is. Right? And you're living in a war zone, essentially, in the Middle East. It's absolutely miraculous. But, again, helping others, giving of what you have, even if it's not a lot, to help others, nonetheless, guess what? You get unbelievable reward. Right? Commensurate it with what you give. But you have to learn how to give. And when a person does that, obviously the other person will be totally indebted, be so happy, but that brings peace to the world. Interesting enough, we've seen a number of times the correspondence for good things and bad things in this Mishnah. So we mentioned that again, people are going to get honored. It's going to bring peace to the world, which corresponds to something that's absolutely the opposite, which is that the more maidservants be a disgrace, bring about more immorality. This is going to bring more peace, more goodness in the world. Why? Because people are helping other people. They realize, money they've been given is there to help others. It's not just to buy fancy homes and fancy this and whatever. That's not what it's here for. It's here to help others. And if a person can give, they should. They definitely have an obligation to give. Right? At least 10% after taxes. Right? Whatever comes in, you give 10%. Right? A person can give up to 20%. They give up 20%. You can't give more than that because then we're afraid, they may need charity from others. Now, comes along Rabbeinu Yonah, famous Rabbeinu Yonah of Gerondi. Rabbeinu Yonah explains in the Mishnah, this part of the Mishnah, and he says, person gives charity, others will benefit from their money. Right? That's why we give charity in general. Other people are going to get benefit, they get helped, etc. That's going to bring peace to the world. Why? Says Rabbeinu Yonah, people are going to see that person knows how to use their money. And they have money and they waste it on the frivolities of this world, they can be severely punished. That's why God gave it to them. Gave it to them and they used it for the wrong thing. Right? So I saw brought down somewhere many years ago, someone who's rich says that 1 in 1,000 rich Jews go to paradise, go to Gan Eden. 1 in 1,000.
Wow.
Because the other 999 don't use their wealth for the right reason. And that is totally held against them. Now, I'll tell you, someone told me, when we say over here, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, that people will see, person knows how to use their money to help others. So when I had money, I had my own learning center. Who paid for it? I did. Because I had my own money. So I was telling someone what I did in front of speakers and this and that. And they said, wow, said, when you had money, you knew what to do with it. So if a person has money, they have to know where it should go. It should help widows, orphans, schools, rabbinic scholars. Right? The money doesn't go to waste. Should not go to waste. Does that mean, a person has to live in a place where it's like a hovel and rickety chairs and all that? No. That's not for this generation. There was a rich person came from America, came to visit the Rabbi Chaim, a blessed memory, and he saw chairs are falling apart, tables falling apart. So he says, Rabbi, let me give you some money to buy, proper chairs, proper table. So the Rabbi Chaim asked him, he said, well, where's your furniture? Where's your table? Where's your chairs? So he said, I'm only passing through. I'm only passing through over here. So the Rabbi Chaim said, I'm also passing through. Right? The Rabbi Chaim said, this world is only, we're going to see this probably when I'm about 96. Right? This world's only a portico. to the next world. We're only here for a short amount of time. King David says 70 years. We have strength 80 years. We're here for a short amount of time. So Rabbi Chaim said, I'm not worried about furniture. I'm not worried it's rickety, it's not rickety. That's not what the essence of this world is. The essence of this world is how much Torah and mitzvahs we do. And he said, I'm only passing through. Problem is, we want to have nice things. I'm not saying you have to live, with rickety furniture, and stuff that's falling apart. Everyone according to their means. But, a person buys a mansion, like, this guy was building a mansion. Rabbi came to him for a charity cause, and then he mentioned, about mezuzahs. He goes, I'm only going to get simple mezuzahs. You have to understand, the person built a very fancy house, right? And he thinks to himself, wow, how much money is going to cost me? 20 mezuzahs, put on the doors. I'm going to get the simplest ones, cheapest ones. But what's the purpose of a mezuzah? Purpose of a mezuzah is to guard the house. So what are you skimping on? Now, I don't have money for that. Oh, but you have enough money to build a gigantic, humongous house over here. Put all these fancy things in. But the most important thing, your mezuzah you skimp on. Maybe lashed out at him. He said, how can you skimp on mitzvahs? It's there to guard the house. You're going to sit there and skimp. Right? So a person has to know how to use money. I'm not saying, a person can't eat well, etc., but everything within reason. Because if you give it to the wrong thing, right, what did we say before? We said that if a person uses their money and they waste it on the frivolities of the world, God's going to take serious repercussions. Because God's going to say, I gave you this money. No matter you worked hard or not, I allowed you to be successful. What do you use it for? Use it to save the whales. Use it for an animal refuge. No offense to any animal lovers out there. Plenty of other good things to give it to. Well before that. If I was thinking of a scale of 1 to 10, give it to an animal refuge or any of these things, I would say it's about number 257 on the list. Not a high priority. Again, no offense to any animal lovers out there. But it's a waste. You can help orphans, widows, schools, many other things to help. Besides that. So if a person, gives charity however much they give, doesn't matter how much they give. If they give it to the wrong place, then what's going to happen? They're in trouble. They're 100% going to be in trouble. And the reality is that they have to be able to know where to give it to. That's what they have to do. And if God says, why did I give you this money in the first place? What's the purpose of having this money if you give it to the wrong place? So God can either take it away, or God can give you more of it so you lose your portion of the world to come. Right? And that would be worse. So a person has to know how to use it. Now, another aspect of this is if someone gives charity to help others, he can also be a conduit for other people to give charity. In other words, the person's passionate about a certain thing, and he wants to help, and he goes out there, makes videos, all kinds of things. So people see, wow, this is an important thing. This is a great act of loving kindness. So they see that when they're in a better position, they want to help others as well. Meaning, right, as we've said before, we're going to see in the future, whenever that's going to be, mitzvah goreres mitzvah. Person does a mitzvah, can cause other people to do a mitzvah. So the person gives charity, and the person says, wow, that's such a great cause, I wish I could give. I don't have money to give. But if I do have money, I'll give. In other words, they have the ability to cause others to give charity as well. Now, hopefully it's to a good cause. So not only they give charity, but the person who encouraged them, inspired them, is going to get credits as if they gave charity themselves. Now that's an unbelievable novelty. That is a huge novelty over here. It's one thing if you give charity. So if you get someone else to give charity, okay, you did a good thing. But who says you get the mitzvah of giving what they gave? Let's say person giving money to charity, whatever it is, and they convince someone else to give, I don't know, $100, $150, $200, $50, whatever it is. You get credit for giving that money. Right? That's a huge thing. Because I would think, okay, I gave someone advice. It's a legitimate cause. Let's say it is. Even if it's a legitimate cause, guess what? They didn't give the money. Right? They got 10 people that gave money to this charity. And they convinced them to give money. Doesn't matter, more or less. They get credit as if they gave the charity themselves. So that's a huge thing. Right? I never would have thought such a thing. Never. It's one thing they encourage them. It's another thing where even if they give, who's to say that you get all that credit? You get that credit as if you give. Right? That would seemingly be unheard of. You didn't give. So what if you convince someone to give? Convincing someone, you didn't do the mitzvah. You didn't do the mitzvah. They're the ones that gave. So a person will say, come on, they gave on their recommendation. True. They gave on their recommendation. So even if they gave on their recommendation, that person, Shimon gives $50 this charity, based on, Reuven trying to convince him to give this money, and then Reuven finds out he gets credit. He gets $50 credit over here for giving charity. Why? He gave advice. He didn't give the money. He totally didn't give the money. So if he didn't give the money, why does he get credit? So here, we understand an unbelievable idea. The fact that you didn't do the mitzvah, but you encouraged someone else to do it, here you get credit if you did it. So maybe you should be trying to convince other people to give money to charity. Right? So whatever they do, they get the same mitzvah. Doesn't matter how much they gave. They gave more, they gave less. You get the mitzvah. So when we encourage people to do other things, right? Imagine we convinced a Jew to become religious. Doesn't matter how. Right? Totally irrelevant. Person convinces another Jew to become religious. By doing so, you get their mitzvahs. Why? Because you encourage them to change. You encourage them to keep Torah mitzvahs. So you have a very strong portion in that. Right? So people will say that's the greatest charity to give to because, if someone gave $50, you convince them to give $50. So you get credit for giving $50. Okay. Person convinces someone else to keep Torah mitzvahs. So you get all the mitzvahs they do and their kids as well. You get all their mitzvahs. You get a merit of their mitzvahs. A reward of their mitzvahs. That person also gets reward for their mitzvahs. Because they're doing them. But the fact that you put them in the right direction, you help them change their lives, huge mitzvah. Right? But, it's kind of like putting money in whatever investment and you always have incurring revenue. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less maybe. Right? It's not necessarily fixed. But whatever the person does, you get credit for. If it's positive. You'll get credit. That's why people will say that's the greatest charity to give to. Because that charity always keeps coming. You're always getting mitzvahs exponentially. Every blessing they make, Shabbos they keep. All kinds of things. They refrain from speaking Lashon Hara. You get all the credits. Because you brought them. You brought them to the table. So to speak. So when a person helps others in general, so you're going to get credit. You 100% are going to get credit over here because you're helping others, right? That's a huge thing. Tremendously huge thing. You 100% get credit, but it keeps coming, right? The credit keeps coming over here. It's always recurring when obviously when the person does the right thing. So that's a huge thing. Here, when a person does a mitzvah, you cause them to do the mitzvah, you cause them to give charity over here, so you get the merit. You get the merit for them giving charity. That's a huge thing. Because before this, we never would have thought such a thing. Just because the person gave charity, okay, you encourage them, they gave it. So now you want to say, I get credit as if I did it? It's a little bit of a jump. It's a huge jump over here. Not something we normally would have said. But at the same time, we mentioned before, a person knows how to use it. They have to know how to use it. They have to know how to give it. They have to learn how to give it. And they should give it the proper things. Because if they don't give it the proper things, they're going to be held accountable in a very severe way. Now, we said before, right? We said before that the more maidservants, the more thievery. Over here, what does this correspond to? Corresponds to more slaves, the more stealing. Why? What does that have to do with the previous part of the Mishnah? Because through these actions, they're going to be despised. People will steal, right? Their slaves steal, cause damage. 100% they're going to be despised over here. But when a person gives charity, what happens? We bring camaraderie to other people, which brings peace to the world. So again, another unbelievable idea here. When we give, we mentioned before, causes others to give. 100% it causes others to give. So that by itself brings about the fact that other people are going to feel good about themselves. They also want to give. Right? They also want to do the right thing. There's nobody out there does not want to do the right thing. They may be misguided, misled, any number of things.
Yeah.
But when a person gives, they help others.
Yeah.
They help themselves by helping others, but others also want to go and do the right thing as well. So we said, interesting enough, it corresponds to part of the Mishnah. It says the more slaves, the more stealing. Because when a slave steals, who's it reflect on? The person who's the master. You're going to say, slave doesn't know any better. That's the way he does. That's what his actions are. Okay. Well, the master is supposed to rehabilitate him. The master is supposed to rehabilitate him. Guess what? When we do the wrong thing, they do the wrong thing, so they're despised. Just the opposite when a person gives. When a person convinces others to give, that's going to bring about tremendous camaraderie. Because others want to give. Others want to do the right thing. That's why we say, mitzvah goreres mitzvah, vera goreres avera. Person does the right thing. They want to continue to do the right thing. They want to go in the right path. Person does the wrong thing, they spiral out of control. They can't spiral out of control. So, does that mean when a person's doing the right thing, they're going in the right path, that the evil inclination drops dead over here, the Yetzer Hara just goes by the wayside? No. He's going to put the pedal to the metal. He's going to make it harder. Right? Just like the example, someone builds a huge house. They build a huge house. And what do? They skimp on the mezuzahs. They spend tens of thousands of dollars redecorating the kitchen, but they refuse to pay $40 for a mezuzah. Or $50 for a mezuzah. Or more. But the mezuzah, as my Rebbe said, guards the house. So why are you being cheap over here? Oh, you don't have money for charity? Yeah, because you were too busy building this big house. So a person loses out that way. They give in, they waste it. Does it mean a person's going to have a nice house? No. Within reason. Another thing we just mentioned is that if a person has money, you don't want to flaunt it. Because that's going to cause other people to be jealous. When it causes other people to be jealous, it opens up your file. It's called the evil eye. That's what the evil eye is. It opens up your file when you don't want it to be open. Why? Someone else is getting hurt by what you're doing. But you're not doing it in their face. I mean, you might be doing it in their face. Per se, it's not your intention. You're building the house the way you want it. Go on vacation where you want to go. You're doing better than a lot of people. Okay? So someone's jealous of that because they work hard, but they don't make as much money. Whatever it is. So what happens? That jealousy goes straight up to heaven. And God says, wow, this person's making them jealous. Let's open up their file. Now, when's the only time you want your file opened? When God's going to scrutinize what we did during the year. Rosh Hashanah. That's it. That's the only time you ever want to get judged. So now, what happens? You're making someone jealous. You're making someone jealous over here. And no matter why you did it. The other person's jealous. What does God say? Wow, this person's causing someone else pain. Let me see what they're doing in their life. Let me open up their file and let's see if they pass the test. If you don't pass the test, you're in trouble. So a person has to be careful in this world. Even if you have money, even if you are successful, you don't flaunt it.
Oh, you become a target.
You don't flaunt it. You live within your means. Right? But at the same time, you don't want to cause anyone to be jealous. Now, it could be, let's say a person had an apartment, they build out, and someone else can't build, or they don't have money. What? I should have a bigger place, I have more kids, this, that. So you're allowed to, but you got to be very, very careful. Because if you make someone jealous, your file could be open. Person can say, it's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong over here. Maybe you didn't. But indirectly or directly, you caused someone pain. When you cause someone pain, then God gets involved. And God's now going to look and say, okay, why is the person causing them pain? Now, you could say, God's going to look down and say, he's not doing anything wrong. He's building out his apartment, okay? He's got money, he can do it, etc. Nonetheless, even if he did it with the right intention, this person, I'm not saying they're small-minded, per se. They're jealous for whatever reason. If the reason isn't really legit, fine, they should be okay. But if they feel that they have a legitimate claim, God opens their file. And when God opens their file, they're in trouble. They're going to be in trouble over here because, God says, well, listen, I gave money, look what he's doing over here. Let's see what he's been doing over the last 6 months, 8 months. Has he prayed properly? Has he done this, done that? Again, we don't want to go through that. We're not interested. We're not interested at all that file gets open. Right? We're not interested at all. And that could seriously kill a person. Jealousy can destroy a person. Definitely destroy them. Physically, spiritually. But the evil eye has a lot of repercussions. When a person makes somebody jealous, it could be hazardous to their health. Literally. Any number of things could potentially happen. Again, even if that was not your intention. Right? Even if it's not a person's intention. Could a person pay a serious price? They can pay a serious price. 100%, they can pay a serious price. Right? There's no question. So we got to be careful. Right? We have to be careful of what we do and how we do things. Because if we're not careful, these different things can happen. And we definitely do not want our file opened except on Rosh Hashanah. And we definitely do not want to cause anyone pain, even if we do it indirectly. So you're going to say, come on, I didn't have intention for this. Let's say it was indirect. It wasn't direct over here. Person still should have been more careful. Does that mean a person, should live like everyone else and, not have too many things? It doesn't necessarily mean that. You have to be careful. Because even if you have to know how to use it. You have to know how to do it in such a way where it certainly doesn't look like you're ramming it down people's throats. You live in a place, people struggle, this, that, and you buy a fancy new car, fancy new things. You're not doing it directly to rub it in anyone's face. You feel you should have this, you earned it, whatever. It can cause the person to be jealous. When you cause someone to be jealous indirectly, even indirectly, you put your life is in risk. That's what it is. People say.
It's so foreign to me.
People say, if you don't believe in the evil eye, it's not going to affect you. But there are a lot of signs according to Kabbalah, according to Jewish mysticism.
Oh, no, I felt the sting of exactly what you're talking about. I felt the sting of it and not understood it because the concept seems so odd. Like, how can one be responsible for another's, say, character flaws? If somebody's jealous, isn't that their flaw?
It depends. It depends what it is.
Right.
If it's a flaw that you have nothing to do with, right? You really have nothing to do with. They have this flaw anyway. That's not your problem.
I mean, I've got a little brother, right? Like 4 years younger than me, and all his life he's always wanted everything I have. That's just the way he grow, and it's just it's horrible. I can't have anything because he wants it, and there's something wrong.
No,
with
but
and even now I'm over 50, and he's still jealous. I mean,
in this case, that you don't have anything to worry about because that has nothing to do with what you do or what you don't do, right? We're talking about where either it's flaunted or, for whatever reason, someone gets jealous of what you have. Now, even if he gets jealous of everything you have, that's,
when are they responsible for their jealousy?
You bought a new lamp for your house and he's jealous. You don't have to worry about that. If it's something, let's say, more extravagant. If it's something more extravagant and, a person's jealous of that, say, why can't I have that? Why, whatever. Why should he have that? You're not doing it to flaunt. You're not doing it for that reason. Why are you doing it? You enjoy it. Right? But again, person has to be very, very careful.
Sure.
Because even if they have the right motives, if a person, I'll give an example. I got a table, it's in my dining room. It's in my living room. That if you open it up, it's solid wood. You open it up, I can fit 20 people around it. Right?
Wow.
4 leaves, whatever, I can fit 20 people around it. Now, it's solid wood. And I bought it, much cheaper because someone was selling it leaving to America. So I bargained them down. I totally bargained them down, even though I thought that was kind of cruel. But I said, listen, people bought stuff from us when I had to leave. I had to give it up for like next to nothing. So, why shouldn't I take it? And what happened?
You seized the opportunity, sure.
Seize the opportunity. Now, someone walks in and says, wow, that's an unbelievable table. And so, and someone's jealous of that. That's not my problem. That's not necessarily my problem. First of all, I got it for a lot, a greater price, even though it was like brand spanking new, and this and that. I'm not out there flaunting it, different. It's a table. So you're right. I have to worry what, if someone's going to be jealous of any little thing I do, no. But if there are things that,
well, people have the grass is greener mentality.
No, you're right. But I'm saying if someone, is building a fancier house, they got a fancier car.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Right? That they're showing what they have. right? That makes someone jealous. Now, does that mean a person can't add on to their house? No. But again, within reason, right? Someone tells a story, a person's building a house, big extension on the outside, person walking by says, I think you should paint it like this, you should build it like this. Guy's like, what are you talking about? This is my house, right? So then what does the guy say? He says, what are you talking about? He says, you're building the outside. The outside, you can't see it from the inside. So who are you building the outside for? For me. So if you're building it for me, you should build it like this and like that. So you can say, okay, that's a little bit far-fetched. Right? First of all, probably someone's not going to say that, but in general though, it's true. Because if you got a house, and you're building it a certain way, you can't see it from the inside. You have no way to see it from the inside. So the reality is, who you're building it for. You're not building it for yourself. You might be doing other things for yourself. This part you're not doing for yourself. Why? Because other people walking by. You're doing it for exterior things, not for yourself. Doesn't matter how much you like it. Even if you walk by it and you say, this is the way I want it. This is the way it should be built. But it's not really for you, is it? Some will say it could be for the person. They like the way it looks. They want a specific shape or who knows what. So they do it that way. But it's not really for them. It's really for anyone else walking outside. You're doing it for everyone else to see.
Flamboyance.
And again, it doesn't have to cost a ton of money. But at the same time, you're not doing it for yourself. That's the point. You're totally not doing it for yourself. So I don't have to worry every little thing someone's going to be jealous. If it's something, though, that's flamboyant. If it's something that's
frivolous and needless.
Overboard. Extravagant in a certain way, that is going, it's going to bring out people's ire and jealousy. Now, if they're jealous people in general, you're not doing anything really out of the norm that other people aren't doing. I don't have to worry about it. But you do have to worry about the feelings of others. And you never want to make somebody feel like they don't have, or that you have more and you're shoving it down their face. Because that's the way it looks. We live in a neighborhood where, let's say, most people have the same things. Some maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. And then you go off the charts. Buy a fancy car, build out, do all kinds of things. So, first of all, you're going against the norm. Second of all, people are going to, your sky, you're way higher than other people. And what does that do? That's being extravagant. That's being flamboyant. That is going to cause jealousy. That you don't want. If it's within reason, it's more or less what other people are doing, give or take.
You grew up in America. I mean, you remember back in the maybe 60s or 70s when owning a Cadillac meant something, right. These big, huge, monster.
Or what do you call it? Or a Mercedes. It's a status symbol. A bimwa, as they call it. A BMW. Right? That's a status symbol. You're right. But I'm saying, there's a very big difference between the haves and the have-nots. The majority of people are not millionaires. Certainly not in America. The vast majority are not.
Well,
so if that's the case, you live in a place where you got people that have and the people that don't have, there's a very big discrepancy. Right? So what's the status symbol today? Probably still an Lexus, right? A Lexus. Maybe an Affinity, right? Give or take. So if that's a status symbol you have and other people don't, there's a jealousy factor. Right? It used to be a Peugeot. Right? It used to be a Cadillac, a Mercedes, whatever. So people have things that other people don't. And if you do something that's a status symbol, then that can cause problems. Because plenty of people out there cannot buy these type of things. And they're going to feel bad. Why does he have it? I don't. But you're going to say, I earned it.
Yeah, I worked in the car business. Yeah. Seen a lot of, flamboyant rides.
Like Smith Barney, right? The old commercial. We made money the old-fashioned way. We earned it, right? We earned it. Okay, so what? So what if you earned it? You buy a fancy car, top of the line, whatever it is, and the vast majority of people don't have, you're opening yourself up. And the point is, you should never open yourself up. This is what we're saying. A person bought normal furniture, someone's jealous of that, I don't think that's your problem. That's all we're talking about. Person bought, a fancy Mixmaster, right? A very fancy Mixmaster. Someone goes, wow, so fancy, this, that, and nobody has it. I don't know if that means anything. If someone's jealous because they're jealous, that's not necessarily your issue. What you have to be careful of is, no matter what you do it within reason. Don't just buy a top of the line thing because you can. Right? Whether it's a house, whether it's, a car, something of value, of a lot of value. Something like that could bring out jealousy in people. Other things, you brought a Mixmaster, I don't know. Yeah, whatever, who knows, whatever it is. If someone gets jealous of that, I don't think you have to worry. I do think, though, you do not want to stick out. You want to be like everyone else. Right? Even if you have a little bit more than what other people have, it doesn't matter. That's probably not going to be an issue. But if someone feels it's an issue, or you're doing something maybe a little bit more extravagant than anyone else, that's a different issue. If most people are doing it, you might be on the higher end, but, you got a lot of people doing the same thing. I don't know if you have to necessarily worry about that. Right? But I would be concerned. I would absolutely be concerned. Again, what's the reason? Because if someone had the ability, doesn't have the ability to do it, you're going to cause them to be jealous. So if it's something extravagant, I say, you got to be careful. But I would also say, even if it's something not necessarily so extravagant, I wouldn't say anything to anybody about it. You're going to say, but it's not extravagant. What's the big deal? You want to make sure people are not going to be jealous. Right? Even if it's not extravagant. Because you never, ever want to open yourself up. So you're going to say, so where are the boundaries? Where are the boundaries over here?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the concept.
So what we're saying over here is you got to be careful. The concept is, if someone's not a jealous person by nature, and by what you're doing, you're causing them to say, well, I could have done that, but I can't. Or, you make them feel bad. So the thing to understand is, let's say by widows and orphans. The Torah says if you cause them damage or you cause them harm, who fights their battle? God himself. Why does he fight an orphan or a widow's battle? Because they don't, or even a convert? Because he's got no one else to fight for them. So over here, what'd you do? What does this person do? You can say he didn't do anything. The other person's got the problem. Well, in some cases, that may be the case. But you have to realize, if someone feels they've been hurt or damaged, what are they going to do? Or what's going to happen? Let's say better. God knows. Because he knows the thoughts of man. And he feels their pain. Now, if the pain's not legitimate, not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if their pain goes straight up, and God says this person, even indirectly, is causing them damage, that's going to be a problem. Now, Dan the man's going to say, come on, I didn't do anything wrong. I bought a nice dining room table. So what? I bought a 60-inch stupid box to put in my living room. Don't watch the CFL, right? Okay, right? Is that going to do anything? Probably not. Probably not. But you're going to say, but what's the difference? It's their problem. But see, if a person caused someone damage, even indirectly, question is by damage if you're going to be liable or not. Right? If it's indirect, which is a whole nother discussion. But here, you made them feel bad, even indirectly. You're going to say, but I didn't do anything wrong, technically. But they feel bad. So if they don't have a leg to stand on, you got nothing to worry about. If God feels, though, you did something wrong at some level, then your file gets open. What, where, when, how, again, I would say, a person has to be careful. If I go to the hardware store, or I go to a place, I buy a hammer, I buy a corkscrew, right? I buy something. Is that going to make any difference? No. A person buys fancy food for something. Is that going to make a difference? No. Most likely. Right? A person buys something of substantial value that a lot of people don't have. Right? They buy it because they want it. They can have it. They have money. And it's out of the norm. And for whatever reason causes jealousy, that you have to be careful of. But you're going to say, what's the difference? Because if something doesn't make someone jealous, they don't care about it, you didn't do anything wrong. But if they feel bad, and again, we're not saying someone who's chronically just jealous in general, right? But if it's something that's, something that someone can't have for whatever reason, and you make them feel bad, that's something that we have to be concerned with. Now, other people will tell you, you don't have anything to worry about. 99%, now the Gemara says 99% of the people die because of the evil eye. 99%.
The Gemara says that.
Now you're gonna say that's the thing. Now you're gonna say that makes even less sense.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to find that for me sometime when you have the time, Rabbi. If you could find that source.
Okay. So, someone will say, but others bring down. If I don't believe in it, doesn't have the same effect. Won't affect me. So again, what's really the bottom line? I make someone feel uncomfortable. I'll give an example. I went to a church today, right? Of what do you call it? My future son-in-law's parents, whatever. They just moved into a new apartment. They don't own. They're renting. Someone dug out of an apartment. They dug out this apartment and put beautiful tiles. Like it's brand new, brand spanking new. I got bookcases in the wall. I mean, it's beautiful. Huge kitchen. It's got a big living room. It's got small, fewer bedrooms, whatever. It was absolutely beautiful. Now, someone walking in and say, wow, unbelievable. Like, I wish I had this. First of all, he doesn't own it. Right? And I think most people probably know that. Second of all is, he didn't build it. He didn't build it himself. Someone else owned it. They did it.
A professional.
Right? Yeah. But they made it very fancy. They made it, beautiful tiles, big kitchen, plenty of space,
ornate.
The 9 yards. Now someone can walk in and say, so, I got these crummy tiles, these old, 50-year-old tiles or whatever, and I don't have such a big living room. And they could feel bad. Now, is that person's fault? Not his fault. Is there going to be any jealousy he's going to be held accountable for? No. You know why? Because he didn't do it. If he would have built it, and it was an addition to his house, and then someone walks in, they see beautiful tiles, beautiful this, beautiful that, they could say, wow, I wish I had that. Now, you're going to tell me, so what? Who, as we say in Boston, who the heck cares? What's the difference? If he does it or not. The difference is how it makes the person feel. And sometimes
I guess I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it as sinat chinam. That baseless hatred for somebody to be that jealous is often baseless.
You're right, but the difference is that they built it with the purest of intention. They had none of this intention at all. Make someone feel bad, whatever. Someone comes in and they look at it and they feel bad. Doesn't matter what their intention was. They can have the greatest intention. Unlawful hatred, you're not liable over here. If someone has unlawful hatred, they just don't like you, and now they're more jealous because of what you did, that had nothing to do with anything. Jealousy out the window. You don't have to worry about it. The evil eye will not apply. Totally won't apply. Right? The hard thing to understand is, but they didn't do anything wrong. They really didn't do anything wrong. They did it in a modest way. They weren't really excessive. They built out, but it made people feel bad because they couldn't do it, or they don't have the money to do it, or the building won't let them do it. It could be a million different reasons why. So you're going to say, but that person didn't do anything wrong. Technically, that might be true, but there's an effect. That's the point. There's an effect of what they've done. So you're going to say, come on, Rabbi, we got to be conscious of the effect of things we do? Yeah. You got to be conscious of things you might say. I told my future son-in-law, I said, don't worry, I got a special poem for you on Purim. Gonna have so much fun, right? But again, I could say, I could always say, I always tell people, if they call me on Purim, I take no responsibility whatsoever, what may or may not come out of my mouth. And my excuse could be, even if I didn't have that much to drink, my excuse could be, I was drunk. I don't take responsibility, but guess what? When a person drinks, you also got to take responsibility. You also have to take responsibility for things you do or you say. You're going to say, I didn't have intention to drink that much. I didn't have intention to say this. What did we say before by Mr. Julian Edelman? Right? You remember? Right? This person, someone else, playing a video game, live streaming, made a anti-Semitic comment. Right? You're going to say, oh, I didn't mean it, whatever. He got fined for the rest of the year, even though he was injured. Right? And, they didn't pay him for the rest of the year. Fine. It's in the consciousness. What he said, he can't say, I didn't mean it. It's there. It's part of your psyche. So, yeah. So a person can make the excuse that I never meant to say that. I was drunk. Right? You can make that excuse. And you're not in control. But guess what? Even if you're not in control, why'd you say it? You know why you said it? Because it's part of your psyche. You can't use that as an excuse. You could, but you can't, that's what you really think. Because, again, there are three ways to test the person, the Gemara in Eruvin says. Koso, kaso, kiso. Koso, how you drink. What comes out of your mouth when you drink? Kaso, how you get angry. Kiso, your pocket. Right? We spoke about the pocket. Maybe when you were sleeping, you missed it. Right? But we spoke about, a person dealing with money. But when a person drinks, you got to be very careful because nichnas yain yotze sod. When wine goes in, secrets come out. So a person can say, oh, I didn't mean it. You could say that. The problem is, you dig deeper a little bit, that's really what the person thinks. Why does the person say things that they probably are definitely going to regret when they drink? Because they don't have inhibitions. When you don't have inhibitions, see, I don't drink and I say what I think in general. Right? I'm careful, but if you don't have inhibitions, you'll say whatever you want.
No, I've seen it in my life, Rabbi, where other people, they're just like a switch. 1 second, click, there it is. It's turned on.
Right. So we have to be responsible for that also. We can't we could make the excuse and say, what do you want? I drank too much. Right? I was under the influence. You're right. It shouldn't have been said. But, you apologize. I was under the influence. But deep down, what's the bottom line? Deep down, that's what they meant. Because when you're inebriated, nothing to talk about. When you're inebriated, it depends how much you drank. You're not afraid to say anything. You don't have any inhibitions. You have zero inhibitions. Or much less. You
should see some of these
so you say what you think.
Druggies I deal with. Oh.
So, people don't care. If they're high, anything goes. Sometimes they remember, they won't remember. Whatever it is. But bottom line is what comes out of our mouth. A person can say it's slip of the tongue. No. It's there. It's part of the psyche. It doesn't go away. The only question is when it comes out or when it doesn't come out. right? So now everybody knows if I say whatever if they call me on Purim, which they won't probably get a hold of me anyway, but whatever comes out of my mouth, you have to deal with. I can say all kinds of things.
Rabbi,
Depends
we
how
got a
much I
question
drink.
on YouTube. A question on YouTube from a lady named Sharon. She says, "So I guess we shouldn't
Yeah.
invite anyone into our homes so we don't take the chance of hurting someone."
Yeah, but why do I have to do that? Why would I have to do that? I can invite anybody I want. So what if I have nicer furniture or a nice bookcase? If they get jealous, that's not my problem. We're talking about someone who builds, someone's got a fancier car. You can say, well, what if you have fancy furniture and fancy this and fancy that? Could that make someone jealous? Technically, maybe. Maybe it could. I don't have to worry about inviting someone like that. If a poor person came to my house, let's say, they walk in the door, you say, wow, such a nice bookcase. I wish I had that. It's not really going to happen in most cases, right? If a person has a fancier house and they see fancy things, that's a different issue. They can say, what, I should never have fancy things? I didn't say that. I said you got to be very careful. People have, if you know what Swarovski
Yeah, you don't
is,
want them so priceless
right?
that they just sit in a case and never be used. They have
You're
no
right.
function. Is
So
that
someone who collects them, let's say someone has a collection, you got 30 of them, 40, they're worth a lot, right? You put them in your break front, people to see. That could cause someone to be jealous.
they're
right?
just on display? They're not.
So would I say in general you can't invite anybody over? Of course you can. That's not a problem. That's not a problem. You can say, what if the person has a fancy house and a fancy inside? I said, listen, rich people, someone who's very rich, they have fancy things. It's true. They bring someone in. Could it cause some damage? Yeah, it could. For the vast majority of people, I don't think you have to worry. I don't think you have to worry. Right? So you said, what if I have a few fancy things? I don't know. The point is you have to be careful. You definitely have to be careful. I would say, if you live in a place, certainly in the States, everyone has cars because you can't get anywhere without them. All of a sudden, you buy a Tesla. You buy top of the line, hybrid, whatever, costs $100,000, $50,000, whatever it is, but no one else has one. Or you're driving around in a Lamborghini, or a Jaguar or something like that. You're flaunting. That's what you're doing. Now, if a person bought your Cadillac, they bought your Cadillac, but it wasn't brand new, and it's 5 years old, and you got a good deal on it. I don't think you have to worry about that. You bought a top-of-the-line BMW, a Lexus.
I drive an S-Class Mercedes. I mean, I have for 10 years
right?
now.
Right. So, okay, I don't know if that's a big deal. It's a much older car, different things. Fancy furniture a person walks in, I don't know, do I have to worry about that? Most people, I think, hopefully, live within a certain amount of means. If they're filthy rich, you walk in the house, it's extravagant, this, that. Yeah, that would be a problem. For most people, I don't think they walk in your house, unless it's a real fancy thing or whatever, that you have anything to worry about. I don't think, doesn't matter. Let's say, I remember when I moved to the apartment I'm in now, so I had, for years, I had all the secondhand furniture. So I said, when we move, we're getting new furniture, getting new beds, new this, new that. Okay. Right? I bought new sofas. I got this table very cheap. I got some other things. Now, somebody walking in will say, wow, these are great lazy boys. They sit, they, very, very comfortable, can sleep in them, not a problem. And they say, wow, do I have to worry about that? No. Even when it was brand spanking new. You know why? Because it's normal furniture. It's normal things. If I bought something, if I brought a sofa and people knew it was a brand name sofa and the sofa itself cost $10,000 or more, and someone walks in, that you might want to be concerned about, because then they know They know it's, it's, oh, isn't this whatever type of sofa it is? Isn't one of the famous things that, costs all this money? Oh, it could be. Could very well be. Right? So you sort of downplay it, but someone said, wow, they got fancy this, to fancy that. So yeah, I would be concerned. In most ultra-Orthodox homes today, what's one of the first things they're going to see when they walk in the door? Bookcases. They can be very nice, beautiful bookcases. You think someone's going to say, wow, I'm so jealous, got such a bookcase. I don't think you have, normal furniture, I don't think you have to worry. Lazy boys, I don't think you have to worry. You got a grill that could, cook the Leviathan on outside. I don't think you got a problem. I don't think you have to worry. You're not going to have to worry at all. What I would say is that, even if you redo, you redo the kitchen, you redo the living room, is that going to make someone jealous? I don't think you have to worry. If it's something external that people see and it's like in their face, that I would say is a bigger issue. But you're going to say someone's got a Swarovski collection. Hundreds. I'm still not convinced, even if someone sees it, is it really going to say, wow, this is worth a lot of money? I don't know. Maybe better to hide it. Could be. But I think most things a person has in their house, I don't think they have anything to worry about. Because I don't think people live in the lap of luxury in their house. If a person's got a fancy house, they got all fancy things, that I can hear. So someone can say, what if they have, a beautiful swimming pool in the back? So what? A lot of people have swimming pools. You live in Florida, everyone has swimming pools. Beverly Hillbillies, movie stars, swimming pools, right? So what? If everyone has it, I have to be worried about it? Oh, but if I had a pond in the back, flying fish, maybe some other things that people don't have, that's out of the ordinary, or it's like really exotic, I'd be worried. That'd be something I'd be worried about. And if I was building, an extension to my house, I'd be very careful. I would be very careful. But regular stuff in the house, I don't think I have anything to worry about. I don't think people are going to be jealous. Say, wow, you got the top of the line Cuisinart. Wow, unbelievable. I don't think people are going to care. You got top of the line ironing board, okay? And an iron. Nice furniture. If it's extravagant. You're talking furniture costs a mint. That I would hear. Even if you're not flaunting it, but someone comes in, they see it. Yeah, that might be an issue. But normal stuff, I don't think you have to worry about. I don't think that would be an issue. I don't think that would be an issue of the of the evil eye over here, because you're doing normal things. It's normal everyday usage. I remember, I don't know, maybe this was held against me. I remember I bought an apartment, first apartment that I bought in Israel, with a funny shaped porch that, to build the sukkah was problematic, because you had like a cement thing that was like a 7, looked like a 7. They see like a lot of these ground floor apartments had it, because if you were in a helicopter, high up, it looked like a rose. I don't know exactly how they built it, whatever. So I didn't want that. Making the sukkah was problematic. So what did I do? So I built out a porch, and I put up a pergola. So I'd have a permanent sukkah. And I wouldn't have this issue. Now, the thing is, when I built out, it took time to build out. They had to bring cement. Half the neighborhood kids got entertained. And I put up a pergola. Now, did other people have pergolas? Yeah. I didn't even think twice about it. And I had it out. So I could fit like 25, 30 people in my sukkah. Okay. Could that have made someone jealous? Potentially. Potentially. But the reality is, it's not an abnormal thing to do. I'm not adding like such fancy, I didn't put a deck out there. I didn't put lawn furniture out there. Like, I could have done all kinds of things. But it wasn't private. That was a problem. Right? But when I put this sukkah up, I didn't think anything of it. It's a pergola. Did I pay a mint for it? I didn't pay a mint for it. Whatever was going, it was a pergola. A lot of people have permanent sukkahs, so you don't have to build a sukkah. And you put schach right on top. You put these palm fronds right on top or whatever it is. Made life a lot easier. Now, could that have made someone jealous in theory? Could have. Maybe it could have, because people can see it and you're building and this. But is it a normal thing to build a pergola? Yeah, it is. It's not an abnormal thing. So that, I don't think I had too much to worry about. I didn't really think about it. But I didn't think I had really too much to worry about because who's going to be jealous if I'm building a pergola? Maybe they can't, whatever, but it's a normal thing. We're talking about things that aren't normal. Things that are more extravagant than other people can do. That's where you open yourself up. That's 100% where you open yourself up. If it's something normal, normal wear and tear, different things, no one's going to be jealous of that. That's not going to be an issue. But if I had a ton of money and I put a ton of money into, building up my house and outside and this and that could cause jealousy. Having fancy things. If it's normal things. A person bought a car in a place where a lot of people don't have cars. But it's a beat up car. It's not brand new. It's a beat up thing. It's 10 years old, 5 years old, whatever it is. It's not brand spanking new. I don't have an issue with that. That shouldn't be an issue. If it's something fancy. You live in a neighborhood.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to walk around worrying about what everybody else thinks all the time. I'm just not wired that way.
No, and you're right. Most people are not wired that way. But guess what? Comes on Torah and says, I got to be careful. Right? Now, if people, have all kinds of other issues, and they're going to say, wow, I think you should do this, I think you should do that, and they have their own issues, I don't necessarily have to worry about that. The only question is if I cause them to have issues. That's the difference. If I were to buy, let's say, a Jaguar, which I wouldn't, but let's say I would buy a Jaguar in a place where most people don't have cars. That is stupid to do. People will be jealous. Right? That's something, and a normal thing, people will be jealous. You're not just buying a normal car. I'm not just buying, at that time, you're buying, top of the line Cadillac. A Seville, right? I remember the Sevilles, right? You buy a Cadillac, you buy a BMW, whatever it is, and most people have clunkers, you're opening yourself up. You're for sure opening yourself up. You're going to say, but why do I have to worry about that? Because God says you got to think about the feelings of others. Because if you have, don't be extravagant. That's the point. Use your money for good things. See, Torah comes around even after almost 3 hours. Torah comes around. Don't be extravagant. Don't let other people think other things. You're going to say, what do I care what they think? You don't care, but you have to have sensitivity. That's the whole point of this. You have to have sensitivity for others. Doesn't mean you can't have nice furniture and nice other things. Right? But you have to have sensitivity. If you're living in a place where people don't have much and you go bananas, you spend, $30,000 on fancy furniture and this and that, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. You got to be careful, right? That's really the point. And guess what? We still didn't finish.
Wow.
We didn't finish.
I know we kind of got off, but I'm learning so much, Rabbi. You're sharing with me some things that, answer so much of the angst in life. But for some reason, I guess I'm wired a little different or had been wired a little different and trying to understand, Hashem, where do I need to change? If you could find that, where that's mentioned, like I asked, and just send it to me in a message, I'd appreciate it. I just would love to research it more. But thank you so much, Rabbi. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And so does that mean now we're definitely not on next week, right? Because you've got wedding things going on all week.
So I got definitely next week. We're gonna have something right after Shabbos, so that's gonna be pretty much out. So next week you guys get a break, but the week after we should be back up and running, and that will be chapter 2, Mishnah 8, part 21. but we're probably gonna finish
5 months worth of one Mishnah.
We're probably gonna finish this Mishnah because not too much left to do. So, but we are most likely gonna finish. I shouldn't say We're definitely going to finish, right? Without a vow over here.
Well, I want to encourage you.
So the source over here is Baba Metzia 107a. That says that evil diseases include the most terrible diseases. The Gemara lists several opinions.
Baba Metzia,
according to one rabbinic authority, according to Rav, that disease is called ayin har, the evil eye. And the Gemara continues and says, Rav visited the cemetery. When he returned to report, 99% of the people died due to the evil eye. That's
99%. And that's Baba Metzia, what?
Baba Metzia 107a.
107a.
Because the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot later, chapter 2, verse 11, whenever we get there, says an evil eye, the evil inclination, the hatred of one's fellows drives the person from the world. So that we're going to come back to it. We're going to get back to it. We're definitely going to get back to it. So, whatever, there's a lot to know. There's a lot to know over here. That is definitely true. So, 100% next week, I'll be out of commission after my daughter's wedding. Because we have something that's, after Shabbos. So the week after, we should be back up and running.
Wow. Well, there you go. So, folks, we're not going to be here next week, but we will be back in a couple of weeks, Hashem willing. And please, anybody, if you are willing to support Rabbi Coffman in his endeavors with his wedding expenses, you can go to his website, orthodoxconversion.com. And if you scroll partway down, you'll find a donate with PayPal link where you can use your credit card. Credit card or direct bank pay. But I want to encourage everybody. Rabbi pours his heart out and shares and studies and prepares to do these lessons for us, and we're so thankful that he takes the time and goes into such depth. It means a lot to me in these classes. We've been going at it more than a couple of years, Rabbi. And, when I do play them on the International Noahide Network on the Roku station, I just turn it on and 6 days worth of Pirkei Avot straight. Now, when I upload the latest, you're going to end up with about 9, 10, 12 days nonstop Pirkei Avos.
That I think would kill people. But how many episodes have we done? Have we hit 100 yet?
No, I think this is number 99, to be honest with you.
Oh, so it's gonna be 2 weeks. We're gonna hit number 100. We're gonna have a special.
I better double check that, but I believe. Let me just pull it up real quick. I want to see. Now the shortfall is there might be some in there that, in fact, I haven't added into the playlists, and so sometimes, yeah. So this is showing as our 99th. Yeah, but we could be over 100, and I just haven't gone through them with a fine-tooth comb. But I'm thankful that we've been going at it for a couple of years, and it's a joy. And let's face it, this is the meat and potatoes of all ethics, I think. And I know B'nai Noach can really benefit from it, and I encourage them all to dig deep and understand. When I was chatting with somebody else from another Noahide organization, I said, well, we've been at it for a couple of years, and they're going how come it took so long? How come it's taken so long? And I said, the rabbi's being thorough. I said, there were some we did 16 weeks, 18 weeks, and now we're going to go to 21. But let's face it, if you know the Mishnah and you look, you can see how chunky it is and how much data is in there and what's really conveyed with the Mishnahs and what could be extrapolated from. And this is the way the oral tradition was passed on, I'm sure. And to make
there's no shortage.
And when you're sharing with somebody who's thick like me, I mean, yeah, and I'm dozing off after working so much. I mean, forgive me, Rabbi. It's no slight.
Not a problem. Listen, there's Torah's very deep, right? What does King David say? It's as expansive as the sea, and in the mountains, and everything else.
Deep and wide.
It's pretty. People who say there's no depth have never really learned. They've never really learned. You can say, okay, I extrapolated. We got off topic. and different things. But a lot of these things hit, they hit home. They definitely hit home because, these are things we all have to know. We have to understand, we have to live our lives the way the Torah wants. That's what we have to do, right? That's our obligation. And, it's not easy. And there are many, many, facets, of it. Imagine going and getting into Torah law and all the disagreements and different things. This is just ethics. This is just ethics, but there's, plenty what to talk about. No question.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
I always say if I would listen to half the things I'd say, I'd look different. How if I had listened to what I say also? Take what I say, to home as well.
Well, bless you and all Israel. May Hashem allow the light of Torah to keep shining on the land of Israel to reach the rest of the world. So we're not gonna be back next week with Pirkei Avot. So please keep an eye out on social media for our next class, and we hope we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And Rabbi, be blessed with your daughter's wedding this week, and we hope that all goes well. So I better get to bed because I've got to go back to work in a number of hours. I better get at least some sleep, or it just makes it a long, long, long night. And
I gotcha.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So we're going to sign out. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day.